Hey, y'all.
Hi, Libby.
Hello.
I will not win the background of the month.
I might win background noise. I was doing the minutes and I realized my kids were very audible last month.
Oh, I didn't notice them so much, and that's okay anyhow.
I probably have sensitive ears for it.
Yes, mama ears.
Well, fortunately, it was a rated G Clintonville area.
Yeah, could be much worse.
Watched a school board meeting where one of their probably about a 10-year-old son walked by shirtless behind one of the board members.
Only shirtless.
Yeah, it was still G-rated.
Hey, David, condolences on your dad. I haven't had a chance to email you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay, we're gonna get started promptly here. We have a full agenda and lots of things to discuss. I do know that Commissioner Kendra Carpenter will not be in attendance this evening. Please mark her absence as excused. She cited the reasons related to a family illness. And we'll go ahead and get started. It's now 7 o'clock. We are recording on Zoom meeting platform and we are live via YouTube at the channelclintonville.com YouTube station. So we will go ahead and get started and I'll monitor the participants as they enter the waiting room. And we'll go ahead and do if anyone, any public attendees are interested in making any kind of questions or comments, they can do so by emailing commissioners@clintonvilleareacommission.org. commissioners@clintonvilleareacommission.org. And the agenda you can find on the CAC website, clintonvilleareacommission.org. And we'll go ahead and get started. Lots of people still coming into the waiting room here. So welcome to your Clintonville Area Commission, committed to the undertaking and the preservation of the values of the community through promotion, implementation, and recommendation to city officials. The CAC was empowered in 1974 by the Columbus City Charter to represent the Clintonville community in the discussion of community concerns. By city code, the purpose of the CAC is to afford additional voluntary citizen participation in the decision-making in an advisory capacity and to facilitate communications, understanding and cooperation between neighborhood groups, city officials, and developers. And with that, I shall continue to admit people through the waiting room. And we'll go ahead and begin with district reports and introduction of commissioners, starting with my good friend and colleague at the southern bookend of Clintonville, Commissioner David Votero.
Yeah, as BJ kindly introduced me, I'm David Votero. I represent District 1. District 1 was pretty quiet this past week. The only incident that I want to comment on, I did follow the CREST application through the BZA, and not without incident, but I'll spare everyone the details. We were successful in getting the conditions that we gave the approval on, which was no service, no tables, and no chairs, added to the approval. The BZA did approve the CREST application, and we were able to get our conditions added with a little bit of advocacy on our part. But the CREST, I don't know where they are in their planning, how fast that project will move, but I did want to report that back that with a little effort, we were successful in getting our conditions added to the the application.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Votero. That's very admirable. We appreciate that information coming around 360 degrees. Again, I want to reiterate Commissioner Weatherholt's conveyance of condolences to you and your family and about your father.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to District 2.
Hi guys, this is Brian Pfeiffer, District 2 representative. Relatively quiet month for our district. Just a little bit of update, not necessarily in our district, but right on the other side of the Olentangy River where the Bloom Administrative Campus is, or Ohio Health Building. They did follow through the city of Columbus and plant some trees and bushes along that side. Just going to be something that we'll continue to keep in mind for District 2, as a lot of those changes on that side would impact changes in District 2 because we would be able to easily see things that would go on the other side of the river. So just keeping that in mind and enjoy the woods that we have.
Well, thank you. That's good news. I very much appreciate and I'm glad to hear that update. Thank you for working so hard on behalf of your constituency. We really appreciate that. Commissioner Pfeiffer, keep up the good work. We are at District 3 with Commissioner Weatherholt.
I think you're on mute, Commissioner Weatherholt.
I'm asking her to mute.
There I am. Sorry. East North Broadway has, as most of the entire commission area, we have lots of deer. I have pictures of a 6-point buck in someone's backyard on East North Broadway. Several deer families have taken up residence in, different yards, and we have been trying to get deer crossing signs. However, Catherine Cole was helpful in at least putting through that request. However, it appears that it takes 5 incidents in a similar area to get a deer crossing sign at all. And we have not gotten a yay or a nay on the deer crossing, but we are a little concerned because mating season is coming up. And we can just see a lot of deer. We did have one killed 4th of July weekend on East North Broadway. And so we just want to make sure that everybody is aware that deer do cross East North Broadway a lot. And whether or not there's a deer crossing sign up there, with the speed of traffic and things on North Broadway, we just want people to be aware that we're in a wildlife zone right now. The other thing I wanted to say was that I'm so pleased that Green Spot had a great cleanup this past weekend. They'll probably report on that, but it was a great cleanup. Walhalla residents also had a cleanup this weekend that has made a difference on the street there. Let's see. I've had a couple of complaints and a couple of observations that graffiti is on the uptick right now. And so several things that people have reported to 311 already about graffiti. Just try to keep up on that. You can do that on 311 and make sure that they are aware of the graffiti and that perhaps there can be some remediation of that. It just makes a difference in the neighborhood on whether or not there is more or less graffiti around.
Thank you so much for the update. And I'm sorry that you're having to deal with so many adversarial consequences, graffiti. But just to back up what Commissioner Weatherholt says is that 311 is created just not only to report those issues and to act as an operator switchboard to get those directed from the neighborhoods to to the powers that be, but it's a great data tracker. So the more people that use that system, number one, it tracks. So if at any time we can pull up our polygon of the Clintonville area and say how many residential complaints, how many residents' complaints have been lodged for the abundance of deer and issues related to wildlife, they can pull up a report. And you know, the most reliable source that the city of Columbus is going to want to turn to is in fact their own resource, their own system that they have for tracking that information. So do encourage your constituents. And if there are any community members out there who are attending or watching live, any issue, if it's graffiti, wildlife, speeding traffic, anything of that sort, do get it out there and report it at 311columbus.org or .gov and make that issue known, because we want it to be a trackable, you know, what gets tracked gets done. And if you report that aren't being tracked, then the problem, the onus is upon us. So use that tracking system and do it abundantly. Thank you, Commissioner Weatherholt. We appreciate you. Let's go ahead and move on to District 4.
Judy Minister, Commissioner, District 4. So we had a great summer in the Park of Roses. We were able to start volunteering there and pruning the rose bushes and, you know, weeding, I think at the very end of June. And we created a plan where we would all wear a mask and socially distance. And we just had a great turnout all summer. So it was very nice. So that's all wrapped up until next March, when we'll trim all the rose bushes down. Then kind of steadily for the last few years, I've shared my photos and neighbor written complaints about the Starbucks traffic jam that exists pretty much every day on and off from maybe 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. with drivers blocking the intersection, wrapping cars around onto High Street, people going the wrong way down Torrance to get home just because they, you know, people are waiting through 2 lights just to get in to Starbucks parking lot. I wish I had an answer. I think some of my neighbors sound like they're, you know, on the verge of a civilian uprising because they're just so frustrated. It's gone on for so many years. And I've shared the 2 steps of progress we have made. You know, we did do one side of the street parking on Torrance, and the city was very helpful with that. So it's a little less of a tunnel effect. And Starbucks did put up a sign saying not to block the intersection. Unfortunately, the sign isn't paid attention to, and the problem continues. Numerous neighbors have made repeated calls to the non-emergency line, but I don't know that anyone has ever been ticketed at that intersection, but it's just like a constant little thorn in the flesh in the area. So any suggestions would be helpful. I emailed Catherine again this week and shared a neighbor email. I also shared it with BJ and with our Columbus Police Liaison. And that's about it for District 4. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Minister. I'm so sorry you're having to deal with that. That's a chronic issue. I just, you know, I commend you for not tiring of that issue, because there does need to be some perseverance. You know, it's almost as if only we could get that police officer that was parked in his cruiser at Henderson and High at the BP, if only we could get him parked at the Wendy's in the morning when the traffic backs up the most, I'm sure he's able to nab a few people while they're waiting in line at the Starbucks. I'm sure that he's able to nab a few people who are, you know, glancing at their phone and checking their status on Facebook. I just wish that maybe we could just have somebody take our concerns with a little bit more sincerity at this level.
Well, if you know that officer, please contact him. And I'm convinced all the Facebook checking is just not wanting to make eye contact with the people staring you down to move your car and stop blocking the intersection. But anyway, thanks, BJ.
Has the fire department had any more complaints? Because I know that they did when it first opened, but I haven't heard anything for a while.
The fire department was told not to intervene, and there's a little neighborhood
okay.
story because someone did try to intervene from the fire department.
Okay.
Well, thank you. To be continued. Okay, and we are at District 5.
Good evening, everyone. Brittany Bolton from District 5. I am happy to share that we had a great turnout at the neighbor meetup that I hosted last month. Lots of neighbors came by, lots of dogs, lots of kids, and everyone was socially distant, wore masks, so it was great. I also, thank you. One of the young men who stopped by is a recent graduate of Whetstone High School, and he is about to embark upon a gap year before he moves off to college. He expressed in social media efforts and green spot cleanups to potentially connect him maybe over email intro with Ty and Libby, or green spot with Libby.
Zach and Ryan, but that would be great.
Wonderful. And that's about it.
All right. And just a heads up, we did hear everything and we're able to piece together, but I think your microphone is just out a little bit.
Okay. Maybe I'll move closer to my laptop.
I was kind of emulating what your audio was doing. So just be mindful of it.
Excited about the coffee meetup. Thank you.
Good job. Good job. All right. And District 6, I've already conveyed to this commission that Commissioner Kendra Carpenter has an excused absence this evening. She cited reasons related to a family illness. So we'll go ahead and move on to District 7.
Mike Wyman here for District 7. I don't really have anything to report. I will say that I received this in the mail from the Board of Elections. Whoever was voting at Dominion, we now have a new polling site at the First Unitarian Universalist Church. So don't show up at Dominion Middle School. That's all I have.
It's a good announcement, very worthwhile. Thank you, Commissioner Wyman. We appreciate you. District 8.
I'm Jim Garrison, District 8, and I have a few things. I'm going to try to go through them relatively quickly. I apologize, but I wanted to touch on last month. I mentioned about kind of communications with Ring and how they're willing to have a promotion or special for the residents of Clintonville, and that has that stalled a little bit with Ring. They apologized. But they are open to setting that up for October, and there will be a 10-day window for residents to order from them using a special code, and you get special pricing. I've shared a little bit of that with the Clintonville discussion forum, as well as the East Beachwald Hood in my area, and I'm pushing for that to be area codes or zip codes 43214 and 43202. So I would say look for that on Facebook soon, and I will check offline on the appropriateness of placing it maybe on the commission site. But you know, I want to make sure that it's transparent in terms of this is not something we or I support or am trying to promote. It's just kind of an offering from them for the residents based upon their interest. Second, there was some communication within the neighborhood about, and this has been an ongoing thing, kind of heightened ticketing or awareness about texting and driving. And so while it's important to not be distracted while driving, it's also important to note to people that are listening in Clintonville, as well as everywhere else, that police are looking for this kind of thing. And in the city of Columbus, it is a primary offense as opposed to the state of Ohio where it's a secondary offense. So Columbus Police Officer Chris Riley, our liaison, is able to, I think, be a resource to have address any concerns maybe. But in the interest of safety, it's always important to kind of put the phone down while you're driving. The residents of Morse Dominion Blueprint had a Zoom meeting with Blueprint, some members of the city of Columbus, as well as DLZ, who was the project manager for Columbus and the implementation of the bioretention basins, aka rain gardens. And so, as many are aware, the rain garden design varies between neighborhoods. And in Morse Dominion, up near Indianola, between Morse and I would say Weisheimer or so, there are precast units that have been placed in, and the reason being was to reduce cost and time for a poured-in-place solution. These units can be viewed on Delta Precast's portfolio. Although I had a conversation with Delta yesterday or the day before, and they were very helpful and nice. And they wanted to point out that their involvement in the project was only as a structural consultant for the switch from a poured-in-place method to a precast method. And the results of the meeting was basically the residents were shown a solution that the city is offering to address some of their concerns on safety and aesthetics. And some of the safety concerns are people possibly falling into these, kids playing in them, other things because of the difference in height between the stuff inside of the rain garden and the surrounding grass. And so the city presented an option that would retrofit the rain gardens by kind of filling in the center portion to still allow some parking and other things, but the technicalities of the design, the residents were not, it was not terribly well received. There were some people who was kind of a mixed reaction, I suppose. And I think that the takeaway from it is that Blueprint is aware that the residents are not necessarily happy with the situation, and they're willing to continue to work with us on getting a good solution. So it was I think it was a productive conversation. It went fairly long, and I don't want to say going back to the drawing board. I think they're just kind of advancing the process along. One thing, and I can't remember, Libby, I'm sorry, I missed it when you said about the graffiti or the vandalism. But there was a recent report of traffic boxes being defaced at Henderson and High. And so, similar to what was discussed, if you see that kind of thing, you can report that to 311, as it's helpful to be tracking that kind of thing.
I'm just so thankful for everything that you did, Jim, for the Henderson and High one. And, if any of the commissioners see some things, contact Megan Valentine, because she's got some of the stuff that can do that. But I'm so glad that you took so good care of it.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily want to take it on myself. I was kind of going there to document it. As soon as I heard someone, the interesting thing about it, and it's kind of a good way to understand the residents really like these traffic boxes. It was really well received. And, there isn't a lot of activity or conversations about it when it's implemented, but now as soon as someone touches it, everyone is up in arms about it. There's a lot of opposition on that kind of thing. So that's, nice to see. And so I, on behalf of the residents in my area, wanted to go down and just take a look at it so that I could forward the process to get it cleaned up. And lo and behold, my emotions maybe got the better of me, and I just decided to take it off. Luckily, I had things in my car able to do that. I did want to mention one more thing, and it has to do with my committee. And Chair White, would it be appropriate to talk about it now, or would it be appropriate to talk about it during committee reports?
If you wouldn't mind, if you could just, let's go ahead and table that until committee reports. I think it's best suited then.
Okay, and that pretty much concludes the updates on District 8.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And thank you again for looking out for the entire Clintonville community and using that hand sanitizer to scrub a dub that art decal. Okay, I am Commissioner BJ White and Chair of the Clintonville Area Commission. I'm going to first give you an update provided by Commissioner Kendra Carpenter. She says, I have nothing major to report. All in District 6 is fine. You saw the email from my young constituent who asked that traffic be slower in his neighborhood so that he can walk his dog. Who asked that streetlights be added on his street so that people see him walking his dog at night. I did extend an invitation to this young man from Commissioner Carpenter's district, but I think he had homework to do. So he is not here. Commissioner Carpenter would also like to express her disgust and disdain over the graffiti on the utility box in her district. She was not made aware of it until recently. She said her daily routine usually takes her west, not east, and that may have been why she did not see it. She said, that was my favorite art out of all, and I'm so excited to have it in District 6. John and I will be on the lookout for the perpetrator. I don't know what's meant by that, but we'll let that one ride. Nothing new on the Treasury front. This kind of goes into her Treasury report. She's only had 2 reimbursements, so she says we're more than flush, in good shape. We'll catch up with you in November. Okay, so that's your Treasurer's report and Commissioner's report for District 6 and Commissioner Carpenter. And I'll go ahead and we'll carry this forward to District 9. And just letting you know that we too are enjoying our artwork at Canal and High. It's beautiful, it's bright. It's definitely worth stopping at the traffic light and taking a gander at it. We do have quite an abundance of deer. You know, I think we left on an errand or something. We left to go do something, and it took us away from our house for almost 2 hours. We left, we went up through the neighborhood, turned on to Stanton, brought it out on Indianola, did our errands. We came back. Oh no, we went to the Columbus Crew game. Yeah, that's what we did. So we went to the Columbus Crew game, which took us, you know, about an hour and a half. And coming back, we saw about 5 deer lingering about in the same front yard that they were when we left an hour and a half ago. And they were clearly grazing. They were clearly grazing and eating something, partaking in quite a cracked corn buffet or something thereof.
Acorns.
Something, but they were there for the entire hour and a half. And when we came back from the crew game, they were in the same yard. So they're coming around. So we do have to watch out for them. I guess on kind of a down note, we did lose another pedestrian north of East Canal on High Street. It wasn't at the intersection. It was just about a half a block up. There was a gentleman who lived on the west side of High Street. I believe he lived in the Worthington Towers there, and he ordered a pizza and walked across the street to Donato's to pick up his pizza, and was on his way back to enjoy his pizza dinner and was struck by a motorist and killed. So, you know, I think that not only why we, you know, we live on a former highway. High Street is a former highway, and we've retrofitted a neighborhood around that highway. And I don't know what it's going to take, but it does pique my curiosity. I mean, I think most people on this commission and a lot of people in Clintonville know that I was struck by a motorist while riding my bicycle to work in 2007. And, you know, I just want to say that while we have, you know, police officers who are looking out for that primary offender of texting and being a distracted driver, I just want to say that when a motorist does contact a pedestrian or bicyclist, I don't know of anyone who's been hit on a bicycle or hit as a pedestrian who's been issued a citation. I'm in the process of doing something, doing an exercise for a focus group that talks about the statistics of citations issued to motorists for making contact with a bicyclist or a pedestrian. And I remember I was in the hospital room, and the responding officer came up to where I was. And by that time, Kari had made it there from work. And she said, she asked the officer, you know, the motorist did not stop for 2 blocks. And she only stopped because there was a red light and somebody caught up with her and recommended that she pull over. And I'll never forget, Kari said, "Did you arrest her or at least issue a citation?" And the responding officer looked at me and said, "Well, she said she was sorry." So I guess where that leaves us is that, you know, you can receive a citation for being a motorist and being distracted, but once you actually make contact with a pedestrian or a motorist or a bicyclist, I guess, you know, if you say you're sorry, that's okay. So I just think that we need to lead by example, be the pace car drivers throughout Clintonville. We look out for our neighbors, and we just continue to do all that we can. And just kind of face the fact that motorists who actually do make contact with people are rarely going to be held accountable. So
we need to become more active in the zero, what's it called?
Vision Zero.
Vision Zero, to let the city and I believe it's Morpsey know that this is important.
It is important, and but I think we've, again, you know, facts and data speak louder than emotions.
Absolutely.
It's time to start putting some of the city's own stats and facts behind those emotions, and start taking it to them and saying, why aren't motorists who actually hit people and hurt people, why aren't they being cited? So we'll carry that forward with the passion and get that channeled in the right direction, and we'll use it to the best that we can. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. We've gotten through commissioner introductions and district updates. The special guest, I did extend an invitation to a 10-year-old constituent of District 6 and Commissioner Carpenter's district, but I think he had some homework. We're going to go ahead and you already have been briefly updated on the treasurer's report with Commissioner Carpenter's update. And we'll go ahead and we'll pass this on to Commissioner and Secretary Brittany Bolton for consideration of prior meeting minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me a little bit better this time?
Beautifully.
Good.
Okay, wonderful. You should have received a PDF copy of your. I've received suggested edits from Commissioner Votero you. Those have been incorporated and circulated earlier this evening. With those edits incorporated and considered, Chair White, may I ask for a motion for the minutes to be approved?
Second. You're on mute.
I know, there I am.
Okay.
It wouldn't respond. All right, so moved.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and call roll for accepting the minutes as recently revised and redistributed today electronically via email. And for public dissemination on the CAC website as always. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6, District 7,
Yes.
District 8,
Yes.
and District 9 too shall vote to accept the minutes. Thank you so much, Commissioner Bolton. I know that was very tedious, and I thank you for keeping pace and for having those minutes complete. All right, let's go ahead and turn this over to our neighborhood community liaison, Catherine Cole.
So sorry. Good evening, everyone. How are you all?
Good, thank you.
I'm going to share my screen. I sent this out on Tuesday. These were my updates for the week. There are some things I wanted to highlight. So one of the things, number 7, we've been having several meetings with refuse about just the great influx of refuse that is collected now every week as everyone has been home with COVID. People are creating more and more trash. So one thing that the city is going to be doing is pushing out a lot of education around recycling and ultimately reducing landfill waste. I know the Clintonville community is always very interested in things like that, and especially with the work you guys do in Green Spot Columbus. As I continue to receive more information about recycling and reducing waste, I will be sharing that with you guys. And also, I really wanted to highlight number 7, the save the date. On Wednesday, October 14th, from 5 to 7:30 p.m., there's going to be a virtual resource roundtable. You're going to be able to watch this live at the Department of Neighborhood's Facebook page. And my 2 colleagues, Lynn LaCour, she is the Far East Neighborhood Pride Center Manager, and Beth Fairman-Kinney, she is the Southside Pride Center Manager. And they're just going to be sharing resources for the community. There's going to be housing resources, code resources, school resources. So while I will not be hosting, I will certainly be watching with you guys, and I encourage you to participate as well. And also the Department of Neighborhoods has been diligently working on supporting all area commissions in creating websites if they do not have websites, but also hosting a hub so that community members can go to one website and find every single area commission in Columbus's website on that one link. So it is becoming more centralized, and area commissions that don't have the technology support will now be supported. We are going to be having a training with all of the area commissioners, and I'm requesting to have one point person, one point commissioner to attend that training, because there is going to be some additional information as we are transferring your website link to this additional website. So if you guys want to think about it, or if anyone wants
I'll send Catherine a text.
You can let me know now or next week who you. And finally, there is going to be a new commissioner training. This takes place on October 22nd. So save the date if you have not attended a new commissioner training. As I have that time and that virtual link, I will certainly share that when I receive that as well.
Is that in person, Catherine, or is it Zoom?
It will be virtual.
Okay. Are there any new commissioners who have not yet attended a new commissioner training session? Commissioner Wyman, Commissioner Bolton. Okay, I would urge you to attend that. Just so you know, I've attended the new commissioner training 4 times now, and I apologize. 3 times. I've attended them 3 times now, and I have learned something new each time I've attended. So there's always something changing in zoning and variance, or the building department with the BZA. There's always something that I take away differently. So I would strongly encourage you to attend. Commissioner Pfeiffer, have you attended?
I'm trying to think of what that was. There was something that I attended in the end of May or beginning of June that I thought was the new commissioner training.
Yeah, that could have been. They're held semi-annually, so that very well could have been.
Yeah, I will follow up. I wasn't sure. I thought it was because it had a lot of the details about all the different resources and documents you can access then through the commissioner, but I'll follow up on that.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, anything else from you, our wonderful neighborhood liaison call?
Those are my announcements, so I can take any questions if anyone has any questions.
I just have one quick.
Sure.
Okay. We lost some dumpsters due to fire damage up near Watterson, behind the, what is it, Laughing Ogre, I believe it is. Is this, and then I heard of someone else who has put out lots of fires at Clinton Elementary in their dumpster, a resident. So is this a common occurrence? And they said we wouldn't necessarily get those dumpsters back until the police followed up on it. And, you know, as tree hungry, tree huggers as we are here in Clintonville, we don't have very many dumpsters, and to lose that was one of our bigger places there at the Laughing Ogre near Henderson and Cook and High. So I just.
Do you know if they were private dumpsters for?
Yeah. No, these are the Swaco. This is one of the ones I checked with Swaco. The dumpsters were apparently totally destroyed. It was about maybe 3 weeks ago now, right after the DeSales Watterson game, but the game was over at DeSales, so it's not necessarily due to the football game, but they said the dumpsters were virtually destroyed. So Swaco said they would be following up with the police, but I just wanted to know if fires like that are common around town in dumpsters, or I don't know.
The only time I really ever hear about it is in the university area during football games, but I've had no reports of that this year or even last year, any dumpster fires.
Just if I could jump in here, I actually got emails from Swaco about those dumpsters.
Oh, did you?
In my district there, and they are going to pull them for a while until they said there has been a rash of those. And they're going to wait to see if those subside before they replace them. But I have encouraged them to replace them, as how popular they are. We use them probably every 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, I just suggest in the interim using the dumpsters that are over on the other side of Olentangy at the just south of Bethel Road at the park there.
Is that Bush Park?
It is, yeah, I think it's the Bush Athletic Park there where the
Yeah.
ball fields are. They're always available. They're, you don't have to try to find them if they're full. In the interim, that's a reasonably close location I've had to scout out.
There-
Yeah, another good location is by Charity Newsies, and they've been out there pretty frequently, emptying those, making sure those are empty. So I think there's like 3 dumpsters there now, whereas when they started, there was only 2.
Thank you for that add-on, Commissioner Wyman. We appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner Weatherholt, for your input. Thank you, our wonderful neighborhood community liaison, Catherine, for your report. Are we ready to move on in the agenda? Let's go ahead and hand this over to our wonderful committee chair for the Clintonville Area Commission Zoning and Variance Committee, Stephen Hardwick.
Thank you. We had 3 variances on the agenda, 2 residential and 1 business. The first one was 61 East Dunedin, BZA 20083. In order to rebuild their garage on the same footprint of the existing garage, homeowners Jay Hall and Jill Ford asked for a variance to reduce the side yard setback from 3 feet to 1.8 feet. I noted that I had received an email from their neighbors at 67 East Dunedin, the neighbor closest to the garage, in support of the variance. The owner reported that the previous garage's door wouldn't open without falling apart. And even though most contractors suggested building what they call a huge garage, the owners thought keeping the original size was less disruptive to both yards. We recommended approval 6-0. And one thing that also came out of this is, I know I've had commission approval for telling applicants they don't have to show up if all they're asking for is a 21-foot garage. And maybe one thing we may want to think about adding to that is, if they want to replace a garage exactly where it is and the most effective neighbor says they don't care, maybe we need to consider telling them that we can at least save them the time for showing up at the meeting. We'd still have to go through all the steps, but maybe that's something we could do for the residents. But anyway, the approval was recommended by a vote of 6-0. And that's the end of my report on that.
Okay, is the applicant present?
See you.
Indeed. Hello.
Hi, Jason. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Do you have anything you'd like to add to Chair Hardwick's summary?
Not really. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to help.
All right. Does anybody from the commission have any questions for this applicant?
Chair White, if I could make one comment, it's kind of related to this and topical in terms of conversation. So for the applicant, I apologize. It's not necessarily anything specific to your case, but we had talked about in the past the ambiguity in the code on overhangs and eaves relative to property line setbacks and what the BZA would consider something as an encroachment in a setback and other things. So I wanted to share the email from Anthony Celebrezzi with the Department of Building and Zoning Services from September 8th. What he said was,
you can
generally,
screen share, Commissioner. If you'd like to screen share, you're welcome to do so.
Sure. Let me just do this. Let's see. Okay. So hopefully you can see this. Basically, the bottom line is, I mean, you can read this, and I can put this as part of the record for the minutes. But what the BZA is going to look at is that things such as gutters and eaves will not necessarily be considered as part of the encroachment elements in determining the setback. So they will still look at everything from a case-to-case by case-to-case standpoint. And if there's a right-of-way involved, it may be a more complicated issue. But in terms of the times that I've brought it up where we have people showing a distance from a building itself to the property line, in regards to garages, it will generally be considered as that is the setback point, not the overhangs.
Thank you for that. Mr. Hall, did you have anything that you wanted to say with relationship to Commissioner Garrison's comment?
No, so I mean, I guess in that case, that when Stephen and I had emailed, he had brought it up, and
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the measurement is the 1.8 feet to the wall. It's like it's hard to get an exact amount, but we currently don't have overhangs, and I guess they'd just be like a standard gutter size. We're not doing anything coming off or anything like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
So in this case, it would be nominal.
Yeah, if I could just add one more, thing, I think my understanding of it, and Stephen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're talking about where a building face itself or garage face itself is inches away from a property line, and it's going from a no overhang condition or no gutter condition or minimal condition to something much larger, and that decorative element or that overhang encroaches over the actual property line, then there could be some implications of it. So in terms of your condition, Jason, as long as your overhang isn't more than 1'8" or 1.8 feet, then you're golden, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions from commissioners?
I just have one comment about the overhangs and encroachments of gutters. So it can be an issue, not of course in this case on East and Eden, but when a property is sold and there's a mortgage location survey, any encroachments have to be disclosed. And I've seen garage overhangs marked as encroachments and disclosed numerous times. And basically the purchaser just has to acknowledge that and initial off at the closing. And if the seller is aware of it before closing, they need to note it on their property disclosure form under the encroachment section. So even something as minor as an airspace encroachment is still an encroachment.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you for lending to us that word of sage advice from a very experienced real estate professional. Do we have any other questions or comments for the applicant from the commission? All right, I don't have any emails from the public. So I think, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
There's a second?
Yes.
All right, let's go ahead and call roll. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4, District 4?
Yes.
Okay. District 5 is Commissioner Carpenter.
It's me, sorry.
Sorry about that. Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, yes.
District 6 is Commissioner Carpenter, absent. District 7,
Yes.
District 8,
Yes.
District 9 shall also vote yes. And congratulations, we shall prepare a recommendation in favor of your variance request, and we should have that ready by Monday.
All right, great. Just in time for bedtime stories.
Right on.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
All right, Chair Hardwick, to you.
Under the second one, 456 East Dunedin, BZA 20070, in order to replace a garage of the same size, which was destroyed by a falling tree, the homeowners, Thomas and Rebecca McKenzie, asked for variances to increase the allowed area from 720 to 960 square feet and increase the garage height from 15 to 20 feet. The city recommended including a window above the garage door and in the back, which the applicant said they'll do. The applicants reported their neighbors were supportive. Again, this was replaced, even though this is a larger garage than normally permitted, if they're just replacing what was there square footage wise. And a 20-foot garage is something I don't think any of us have. I don't remember whether the previous garage was 20 feet, but again, the commission has never turned down a 20-foot garage. We recommended approval by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, is the applicant in attendance at this evening's meeting?
Yes, I am.
Okay, are there any commissioners who have Any questions or comments for, is it Mr. McKenzie?
That's correct.
Okay, there you are. Okay, sorry about that. Is there any commissioner have any questions or comments for Mr. McKenzie?
I have one comment. I wanted to thank the applicant for requesting a variance for the height increase to match the appearance of their home. A lot of times, this is not something that is people look into doing. And personally, on a personal level, I feel is important to kind of match that character. So thank you for that.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions or comments by commissioners?
One quick question, and I reiterate Commissioner Garrison's comment there, and thank you for taking the time to match the aesthetics of the house. Did you talk to the neighbors about any feelings they may have for, or have you at least been in contact with the neighbors around you?
My next door neighbor is actually going to help me rebuild the garage. It was his idea when it was knocked down in the first place. And the neighbor on my other side has been very supportive of the cleanup and all aspects of it. So we're friendly with both and communicate regularly. And I believe that there will be other neighbors that will help put this back up with me once we get approval.
Okay, that's great. Sounds like a barn raising.
That's correct.
All right. Any other questions or comments from commissioners for Mr. McKenzie? All right, and I have no questions or comments from the public. Are we ready to vote for Mr. McKenzie's variance request?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yes.
All right, very good then. We'll go ahead and call roll. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6 is absent, District 7,
Yes.
District 8,
Yes.
and District 9 too shall vote yes. Congratulations, Mr. McKenzie. We look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
All right, good luck with your project. Back to you, Chair Hardwick.
Thank you. The third item is at 3369 Indianola, BZA 20067, business owner, and I should have asked him how to pronounce his name again. Ariane Permetti asked for a variance to reduce the required parking spaces from 26 to 17 spaces. He did present a shared parking agreement across the street for 9 spaces, which matches exactly what he was asking for. The architect and the applicant explained that there is currently an AT&T store that is staying, but there's a dentist's office that they want to convert into a restaurant. I can't remember whether he owns the AT&T store or manages or runs it, but he's involved with the AT&T. The owner is involved with the AT&T store there. The city did talk about whether they should get rid of one more parking space to add landscaping. I don't know where their discussions with the city went with us. They can probably update us on that. They didn't seem to think that was practical. They did say they would have all the required bike racks. There was discussion of a drive-through window, but it's not going to be a drive-through window because if they tried to use it that way, it would be on the passenger side of the car, and it would also so they're planning to use it as a walk-up service. And as we learned in the Jimmy John's thing, if they did put a real drive-through in, they would get an automatic reduction in the parking they were required to get anyway, but they are not asking for a drive-through. Drew Miller, they expressed some concern for the car lights on the neighboring, and I think I have that wrong. It should be Indian Oaks Apartments, not India Oaks Apartments. Their plan is to do mainly carry out because the restaurant won't have many tables. The service window would be on the west side facing the apartments. The plan is for hours in the summer to stay open 11 to 11. The applicant said that he has pointed out he had an incentive to keep the immediate neighbors happy because he is depending on their patronage as well as people from the nearby apartments. It is recommended 7-0 with committee member Drew Miller stating that he wanted plants or some sort of other fencing between them and the Indian Oaks apartment. And the applicant said in response that he's looking at some black netting to see if he can fit that in there. And again, we recommended approval by a vote of 7-0. Thank you. Thank you, Chair White.
Okay. All right, and is the applicant here?
Yes, I am.
All right. Hello, how are you? How do we spell your last name? Permetti?
Permetti, yes.
All right, Arian Permetti, nice to make your acquaintance. Welcome.
Thank you.
So do you have anything that you'd like to add? Maybe, have you had any updates from the city since you went before the CAC Zoning and Variance Committee?
So I do have Mr. Terry Boutet, which is my architect. He's taking care of everything as far as the city goes. He is online, I believe, Terry.
Yes, I am here.
Hi, Terry, welcome.
Thank you. We have communicated this information to this to the city, but we have not received any official response back. The landscaping, technically, the only land we quote have that is green at this point is a 2-foot strip along the north side of the building. Now, the owner and I have talked about the introduction of planters, boxes along that line to help bring some greenery into the space.
Okay.
It is a very close, largely tarred area. I mean, it's all paved.
I wish there was a green spot.
Let's see.
And as far as the screening next to the apartment complex, if anyone been by there, you see that you're just facing a whole slew of cars. It's larger than a parking lot, used car lot, rather. So we didn't know for what, 17 parking spaces, the traffic wouldn't be as much as what's in the apartments themselves. So we didn't see that there was really a conflict, but we can put up screening if you see that would be beneficial.
I think during the meeting, the zoning variance committee meeting, you had mentioned the possibility of some planting or something along Indianola if it were in potted elements and not necessarily a built-in element. And I wasn't sure if that was a serious thing or if that was kind of just an option. Is that something that you'd be open to?
So yes, I actually did talk to somebody, a friend of mine that can build me a flower pot with out of wood. I don't know if you've noticed the risen ones that go alongside the building. That's the only way I can plant anything in front or on the side of the parking lot. And I'm actually willing to do that as well.
If you plant anything on the front, is it going to obstruct the sidewalk?
No, so on the front is alongside of the wall. What I'm trying to do is like create the flower bed. It's like a very thin alongside of the brick.
Does that help you, Mr. Permetti?
Yes, thank you. So right in front, so the AT&T, because I believe someone asked about the AT&T. The AT&T I do have as well. Unfortunately, the AT&T ever since Corona did hit, it kind of ruined the business. So we're actually thinking closing it down for now and just using it for storage unit. But alongside between us and next door to us, like Terry said, there's a little bit of grass area there. I was thinking about planting like a couple of small bushes. And then alongside the parking lot, right between Indian Oaks parking lot and our parking lot where the grass area is, there is some plants there. I can actually plant some more. Obviously, I would have to get permission from them.
Where is your handicap parking?
The handicap parking is going to be right where right there.
How many spaces you can have? 1 or 2?
Two handicap.
I think when you discussed the location of the spots, it was my understanding that the passenger loading area, which isn't allocated yet, would that be something that is permanently striped so that, you know, there's a kind of confirmation that the dedication is there for those spots and that it wouldn't kind of revert back to regular spots? Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, the striping is not there at this moment, but we could add that to it. Now, there is signage up against the building at that particular spot.
Thank you.
Do you have a site plan that you've drawn, Mr. Bullitt, that illustrates the plan changes? Is there any chance that a bit of the asphalt towards Indianola could actually be removed in order to make room for planters? I mean, I understand the whole site's planted, but I think the purpose of the landscaping that the city requires is just to try to minimize and try to effectively reduce the amount of paving here a little bit. I know it's completely paved now, and the question is, could a little bit of it be removed in order to create a planting bed? Do you have a site plan that shows your intended layout with the striping for the handicap space and that sort of thing?
Yes, we do. I am looking for that at the moment.
Okay.
And Terry, if you are ready, you are enabled to screen share, but I do have to stop my share. So let me know when you found your document.
Okay, I will do that.
All right. Are there any more questions aside from the impending response from the applicant's architect on the striping?
Was there a city requirement for a shade tree to be provided for the parking? There's usually a ratio of parking to trees that are required by the city.
There was no mention of that.
Okay. There may be a minimum cutoff, but
Yeah.
wanted to check.
I will say, this is Libby, as a frequent biker past there, taking the Clintonville Bikeway and trying to get to my house half a block from there. The sidewalk is narrow all along there, up near Speech and Hearing towards North Broadway and Indianola. There's it'd be the other way. There's a bush that goes over half of the parking area. It's that one right there takes up half of the sidewalk and makes it even more difficult. And as much as I love landscaping and everything, the sidewalks along Indianola are very narrow.
One thing I'll mention, following up to David's comment about the shade tree, the code 3312.21 paragraph A requires one shade tree per every 10 parking spaces. However, we have in the past, I believe, in situations where there is a hardship on this on the side of the tenant, where putting a tree in is pretty much just kind of putting it in there for going through the motions and it's going to die. I think we've approved variances to omit that in the past.
Chair White, may I say something, Chair White?
Absolutely, Chair Hardwood.
Yes. If the city determined that they needed a shade tree, and that would require them to give up more additional space, the procedure would be for them to ask Chair White whether the commission wanted to hear it again, or whether we didn't need to hear it again, whether you didn't need to hear it again. So right now, the city doesn't say that they need that shade tree. I don't know. They tend not to miss things like that. But if they do find out that they missed it, that's just so people know what the procedure is. And there is in his application, which is linked to in the agenda, a site plan. Although I do, and one thing the applicant may want to explain is I see 17 spaces marked out in there but no handicap spaces are among those 17. So I don't see the handicap spaces in there, and I apologize that I didn't catch that before. Or I didn't notice that before. Again, I may be missing something.
Oh, I do have that pulled up now.
Okay, I'm going to stop my screen
If you
share.
want me to screen share that. Yeah, everyone see an A2 sheet there?
Yeah.
Okay, parking space number 17 is the handicap. I know I modified this and sent this into them, but I don't know, I've been losing things out on my computer here lately. I've got my IT person getting ready to work on it this weekend to find out what's going on. But next to space 1 is the bike rack proposed location.
Okay. It seems like it's tough to fit the handicap space into 17. The city has some pretty strictly prescribed parking requirements, and they outline their ADA requirements for the spaces. I'll take it. I'll take your word that you can work it in there. It seems difficult to me. And those are, I would also check the dimensions of the city's bike racks. I think you've got enough space there to make it work, but the city has some requirements for the bike racks, the U-bolts and that kind of stuff as well.
Right. This is the same one we had used in downtown at a restaurant and auto dealer
Okay, great.
system. So we know that one worked.
All right.
And having driven a handicapped vehicle for my father-in-law, space 17 would work great because you have plenty of room for either a rear lift or a side lift. Typically, the right side is what usually gets blocked, especially on vans. And with that being open to the sidewalk there, really gives us a good accessibility there. And as far as driving a large van, which I have done, it's an easy in and then easy out. Some of these handicap places I've seen, even at the VA hospital, like, really, you want me to pull in that space? So, I'm subconscious to that effect to make sure that, it's effective. I know it doesn't necessarily meet the intended protocol that's required for spaces, but we're dealing with an existing site and trying to do the best with what we got on this existing condition.
Yeah, always a difficult thing. I appreciate that.
I'm sorry, but someone who uses wheelchair, I can't see any way how 17 would be in an adequate handicap parking space. Additionally, you said there'd be 2 and 17 is only 1.
As far as I know, there is 1. Is there 2, Mark, Aaron? From my understanding, there's only 1 space 17.
As of right now, there's only 1. I did talk to the landlord, Bob Klatt. He did tell me that we're getting ready to repave. Well, he is getting ready to repave the whole parking lot. And he actually mentioned it to us that he's okay with making 2 spots, because I told him everything that we came up in our first meeting. And he brought that to my attention and said that when we get everything repaved and realigned, we can actually make the second one right next to it another handicap spot as well.
Yeah, I'd have to say I think it's difficult to make angled spaces comply with the ADA layout. I think your ADA layout is probably going to need to be applied in some of the 90-degree spaces, whether it's 11, 12, and 13, or the 7 through 10 spaces, just to make that work. And I think you'll probably end up losing a parking space with the striping that's required. And there's also some, the difficulty here is you want to put those spaces as close to the entrance as you can feasibly. And
Oh,
the spaces at the back kind of argue against that. But if you are repaving and not just restriping, I would encourage you to think about, creating a spot for a tree or a little bit of planting up close to the sidewalk. If you're going to be bringing in asphalt and doing some paving, I think the idea of maybe trimming back the asphalt and creating a planting bed is not a bad one. But I think the city is gonna insist that the ADA spaces, the handicap spaces are laid out per the ADA, and again, the city has some pretty specific requirements for that, and I don't see that here in this plan. I think I agree with Commissioner Weinman that I don't see 17 necessarily working. I understand, from your experience driving a van and helping your father, you could make it work, and a lot of times people make things work, but I think if you're laying this out, it should be laid out kind of without compromise.
Well, 17 has been there for as long as he has bought the building. So that came with the dental place prior to us.
But it's not a handicap spot. There are no handicap spots there.
Commissioner White, can I?
Yeah.
Or Chair White, it may be that the city doesn't require them to add ADA spaces when they're not changing the spot. ADA is usually beyond what the city asks us to look at in zoning. One thing the commission could do is, you may want to think about doing is either turning it down with an explanation that you want them to get rid of more spaces to create ADA spaces, or approving it with a condition that they include ADA, even if that means losing another couple parking spaces.
Yeah, speaking for myself, I don't see any difference between the parking lot of 16 spaces or 17 spaces if the difference is you have a properly laid out accessible space with 16. That seems perfectly acceptable to me, but I think, it would need to have that layout.
And if I could mention one thing, kind of to tail on to Commissioner Votero and Commissioner Wyman's concerns on the parking, specific to the angle. When I reviewed this application earlier, to look at the access board and other things in terms of diagrams of how accessibility clearances are implemented with angled parking. And as far as the access board goes, they had indicated that in a condition such as this, the clear area would be required to be dedicated on the passenger side for loading and unloading. And obviously it's an atypical situation, but I suppose, in terms of accessibility and our comfort of any approvals of this is gauging whether or not, we attach a condition that the parking needs to be clarified and approved by the BZA and defer it to them, or we try to, stop it. Based on what I see, it seems as though it's potentially possible. The angle would obviously come into question and the length of the parking lines, but then we're looking at existing conditions, hardships, and other things. And today, Commissioner Votero's point, obviously having a handicap spot or accessible spot in a 90-degree parking location would be the more typical suitable situation, despite the fact that it's not the closest spot to the entry.
So I think Terry and Mr. Permetti, if you're still within earshot, I think we're at an impasse. I think that we are provided the mobility plan of the Clintonville neighborhood plan, which is a living document and is often revisited. We bring the input of the community to that living document, and we rely upon that as a baseline for how we treat future and impending development. And a big part of that plan is mobility. Mobility includes pedestrians, bicyclists, and those who require ADA accessible parking. So I think, I think that our options on the table, if I've gathered three of the consensus of the commission here, we either table this for you to revisit the parking lot design and maybe table our vote until we've had further review of your site plan revision that includes ADA accessible parking. Or we go ahead and approve subject to the condition of additional ADA parking.
May I make one further comment?
Sure.
After looking at this and the comment as far as using spaces 11, 12, and 13 as ADA compliant spaces, that the main entrance is on the front of the building along Indianola. However, the service window is right there just past space 11. So if we converted those 3 spaces into ADA spaces, to 2 ADA spaces, they would be able to approach the service window and receive service. Would that be a viable solution?
I mean, I think you could put the ADA spaces wherever they need to go. I think you have a width constraint in the east side of the parking lot, and that's why you're angling the spaces. So wherever they need to go. But a quick question. Number one, is the front door accessible? I mean, to ask
Yes,
kind of an obvious question, or is there a step at the front door?
No, it is accessible.
Right on street level.
Okay. And then just a quick follow-up. How are you handling the refuse service for this building? I don't see a dumpster location on your plan. Is it a different, that you've contracted?
Well, they're going to drag this on for another 10
garbage
minutes before it's
just-
voted on. It's like
Yes, and-
torture. Okay, so we can talk. I think
Judy, you want to put on mute?
I've muted her.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead, Terry. I think you're talking.
Back to
that
you.
have been used or to the north of the property along the adjacent retail store.
Mm-hmm. So that's where the refuse location is, and you use that as the pickup point?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Chair White, may I make one
Yes.
more? Typically, the city does not, in my experience, they do not count ADA spaces when they are counting the parking spaces. So I would assume that that none of these would count. So if you wanted to give the applicant permission to, or say that he needed to put in ADA spaces, the variance would probably have to increase by 3 in order to give him those spaces.
I think he could put, I think he's probably only required to have a single ADA space. And I think effectively what he would do is if he has those 3 spaces, they convert to 2 spaces. And I think the city does count the accessible space as a parking space. So he'd go from having 17 spaces to 16 spaces.
Chair Hardwick, can I call upon you to just, do you concur with Commissioner Votero?
I have a different remembrance of what, I remember what the city said differently in terms of whether they count the ADA spaces as the numbered spaces. But he's right that if they only needed 1 space, that would require them to have 2 fewer. That would require them to eliminate 2 spaces, and whether the city would count that as, would then say that 1 space doesn't, whether the city would then say that 1 remaining space doesn't count towards what he has. Given that Commissioner Votero has a different memory, I will, and he's an architect and deals with this every day, and I deal with this a couple times a month. I would trust that he has a better memory of that. So it may
Okay,
be.
let's talk through a real-time numeric here. So Commissioner Votero, if we wanted to approve and attach the condition of adding 2 ADA accessible parking spaces.
I think they're only required to have one. So, you know, essentially if they provide 16 parking spaces and Stephen, yes, I'm counting the ADA space as a parking space. If they provide 16 parking spaces, we're good. I'm suggesting that we could give them, you know, they've asked for, I think, 9 spaces in the variance. Well, let's mark that up to 10. And what I'm hoping is that when push comes to shove, if they do have to create an ADA space here, the city requires that, they don't have to come back to us a second time because suddenly now they're one more space short. I'm hoping we could just approve it tonight, encourage them to do the right thing with the ADA space, and send them on their way and not have them come back. I want you to kind of continue on with your project. I'm not trying to slow you up here. I just think, you know, probably when you stripe that ADA space, you'll lose one. And I'm saying I'm fine with 16 spaces here, you know, if you have an ADA space.
So
Madam
the
Chair?
ratio is actually 1 ADA accessible parking space per 25.
Okay. So
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Wyman.
I'd like to table this until we see a plan that actually includes a handicap parking space, an ADA parking space.
Terry, can you use your cursor while you're on screen share and show me the plan for the ADA accessible parking space?
I'm sorry, this would be this is the existing ADA parking space.
Okay, so that is part of the plan. That little sketch out there shows access, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we do have a site plan that does demonstrate 1 ADA accessible parking space.
That is not an ADA.
I don't think that shows that. I'm sorry. I don't think it does.
There's no way.
Okay.
There's no way you're getting a ramp down out of a side of a vehicle. He's
And if I
talking
could-
about using the sidewalk, and the sidewalks are already narrow. So if you put a ramp down and try to maneuver a power chair onto a narrow sidewalk right there, it's practically impossible. So I call for a second on the table motion.
Yeah, let me carry that forward for you, Commissioner Wyman. We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Wyman to table the vote until we see a site plan that adequately demonstrates a functional ADA accessible parking space. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I'm sorry, who provided the second?
Brian, District 2.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Pfeiffer, appreciate you. All right.
Excuse me, can I say something? BJ?
Okay, yes.
I just wanted to say that the applicant actually had come back twice to zoning and variance. And both times, you know, the ADA parking space was in the city report. It's unfortunate that it isn't in the right spot or wide enough, you know, from Commissioner Wyman's, you know, insight in his situation. He would know better than anyone what would be an adequate spot. But I hate to see us table it because in a way, then they'll have 3 visits. I mean, the architect is here. Can he modify that plan to an acceptable location so that we could actually vote on it? Is that possible to do? Can we just take the parking space to the west and combine it with the marked space and have that be enough space? So in other words, I guess it's 16 and 17 that we mentioned earlier. Can both of those be combined to be the handicapped accessible space?
All right, I believe we have a revision up here that's currently being screen shared by the applicant's architect. Let's go ahead and give the floor to the architect to speak with the revised site plan.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I finally found the crazy drawing. I had misfiled. Anyway, as you see, space 17 is presently a current handicap parking space. I wouldn't necessarily say it's ADA because it doesn't meet the typical standards there. I will also note that it's not dimensioned on here, but from the face of the building to the curb is 8 feet of the sidewalk along that particular area. Now, where the handicap parking space is, there is roughly 3 feet of asphalt pavement and then 5 foot of sidewalk along that particular portion. It's sort of a chopped up lower deal there, but it is all level and smooth. Now, we are willing to move that ADA space over to space 11 and 12 to give accessibility. That allows space 12 to be the ramp discharge and give the driver of the vehicle plenty of space to exit the vehicle and come around to assist as needed.
If I could make a comment kind of tailing on to what Commissioner Minister had mentioned. I've had some experiences with the city as well in situations like this where, I think that we're all understanding that there's a parking spot that's got a handicap sign on it. It's not necessarily a compliant spot. And I think that, the city has, in my experience, been okay with things where they consider an approved non-conformance of the code. And I would say that, in the interest of making things easier for the applicant at this point to prevent them from waiting a month, I would be willing to approve the variance request with attaching a condition that the parking would need to be rectified in a
I'll text Commissioner Garrison right now.
Okay, thanks. He seems to be moving towards what I'm thinking.
I think if we can ask them to provide a plan which shows an ADA compliant parking space incorporated, because the angled space, Jim's correct, is not a compliant space. It might be, from a practical way of doing things, have always worked out in the past, but it's not something that complies with the current standards. I think if they could revise their site plan to include an ADA space, and it might result in a total of 16 parking spaces, I think that's something I'm hoping that we could act on tonight in some fashion.
The client and I are more willing to comply. I just want to make sure where we do decide to put it, that it will not cause any more heartache or grief for the owner.
All right, Commissioner Wyman, you did make a motion on the floor. It was seconded. I want to go ahead and defer to you, Commissioner Wyman. Would you be satisfied if the applicant and in concert with his enlisted architect were to provide, and we can work off of this drawing, this site plan, to be able to take, as stated, parking spaces 11 and 12 into, and I think these are your words, Terry, an ADA accessible, a true ADA accessible parking space. Is that
Correct. That is correct.
all right?
You have my quote on that.
Commissioner White.
Yes.
I think that might be a little too specific. I would prefer to say we would approve it with a condition that there is a totally ADA approved handicap parking space in the lot, and leave it up to the city to approve whatever space that is.
Commissioner Wyman, would you like to weigh in with your suggested verbiage on that condition if you were to consider that?
Yeah. Right now, I'm in the fight with the city over a handicap parking space. at a law firm that I
Mm,
roll past every day on my way to the State House.
mm.
I pointed out to them that they're allowing people to park in the striped out area because there isn't a fine amount placed on that parking space.
Ah,
Code enforcement's response to me was, that is private property. The city will not enforce that. You have to call ADA Ohio. I did not like that response.
Right.
ADA Ohio does not have to enforce Columbus City Code. So there's an entire breakdown with the city right now on how they enforce handicap parking. So I'm going to leave my motion stand until I see in writing that there's going to be some sort of parking space that is ADA compliant, fully ADA compliant, not spilling out into an alleyway, not spilling over into a sidewalk.
So what we're doing here is we're kind of melding ADA, what the jurisdiction of ADA Ohio would do, and we're under the auspices of the city of Columbus. And we make our recommendations based upon the Muni Code. So are we adding an extra layer of saying that the space must be ADA compliant?
No, because what the city code says is that it says that a handicap parking space has to be in compliance with the ADA and the Ohio Building Code. So that's what the city code says now. And what I brought up was a matter of enforcement.
Okay,
You
so,
know, their inability to enforce handicap parking.
okay, so try to move this on into either direction. When I made the suggestion that the applicant revise their site plan to take spaces 11 and 12 to be an ADA accessible parking space, it was suggested that it was too specific. Was I too specific, Commissioner Wyman? Or am I heading on the same trajectory that you're going for? I'm relying upon you for your feedback.
Yeah, you know, the one thing I want to see is a handicap parking space, like a fully compliant handicap parking space. Whether they put it at 11 and 12, or they do something with 2 or 1 or whatever, you know, we don't really have to be that specific. What I want to see is one space that is ADA compliant.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We have a motion on the floor. I would like to offer, since the applicant and his architect have already visited with the commission twice, I would like to give this opportunity to table this vote until the last 5 minutes of the meeting. And what I'd like to ask of you, the applicant and his architect, is to take a sidebar and revise your site plan. And please tap me on the shoulder proverbially and let me know that you've got a revision.
Can we act on Commissioner Weinman's motion? There's been a second. I think we should vote on the motion if there's
Okay.
no other discussion on the motion.
Okay. So are we ready to vote for the motion on the floor to table this vote until such time as the applicant and his architect have a revised site plan? And with those two motions on the floor, we'll go ahead and begin roll.
Yes.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
I'm fully for a fully compliant ADA one. I think we can come up with something tonight, so I'm going to vote no.
District 4,
I agree with Libby. I'm a no. I want to wrap it up tonight since it's been to zoning and variance twice already. And I'd like to see the architect, if possible, modify the plan tonight. Thank you.
okay. District 5,
Yes.
District 6, District 7,
Yes. Yes.
District 8.
Could the chair repeat exactly the language of the table timeframe?
So the motion was from Commissioner Wyman, who suggested that this vote be tabled until the applicant and his architect can produce a site plan that's been revised with an ADA accessible parking space.
I vote yes.
And I too will vote yes. Now, as chair of this commission, I will put it to you, Terry. Can you revise a site plan and have that to us before the conclusion of our meeting?
It is in process.
All right. So you tap me on the shoulder when you're ready, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to the Chair Hardwick. Is that all that you have for us?
Yes, it is.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to committee report. I'd like to hear from each one of our committee chairs, and this is your moment to glean the respect from this commission, to be able to boast about your accomplishments, and let us know about all the areas of community engagement that you've practiced. And let's talk about how darn good we are as a commission. We'll go ahead and begin. Chair Hardwick, I'd like you to begin with 3 minutes of giving us an update on your committee.
Well, what our committee's main job is to gather and sort through information to help you make the decision that you need to make. And we are not the voice of the community, you are the voice of the community. Part of that job is we'd like to try to give our applicants the chance to make the best application they possibly can, giving them advice about what they might see ahead of time and what problems they might have. Another thing we try, equally important, is to give the members of the public a chance to make their point of what they think about it so that everyone has a chance to meaningfully make their say. In order to do that, we've instituted a lot of transparency. I think we're a model of transparency for other zoning committees. The public gets to see everything we see and everything you see, because everything is linked to in the agendas now. The agendas are posted on the CAC's page, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And one thing I like about the Twitter feed is I can instantly put it there, and it's something that's immediately public available, even if people don't have an account with that. We have 9 very experienced people. 8 have been on it for at least from the past year. Every month, the city only requires us to let the neighbors send them, requires us, though they actually only request us to, they don't require us to do anything, request us to send out a postcard to the neighbors saying that there's something going on with the property. We've made a point of actually writing small letters to the neighbors, telling them what the variances are so that they can have a better idea of what they need to deal with. I'm proud of our transparency. We've worked very hard at that. I've also I follow former Chair Bagwell's example of trying to making sure everyone has their say at the meetings. I remember as a committee member being frustrated sometimes when she didn't enforce the time limits on speakers, but now I realize why she didn't do that, because our committee has the chance for the members of the public to talk about it at length. And because we put everything to the public, because we put all those links, make it available, that allows the members of the public to also, if they for some reason don't want to show up at us, they can lobby you, because we've given them all the tools that they need to understand what's going on. And I thank you, Chair White. Chair White, you're muted.
All right, thank you, Chair Hardwick. I appreciate you. We'll go ahead and move on to Chair Andrew Overbeck with our Planning and Development Committee. Hi, Chair Overbeck.
Yeah, hopefully my internet is surviving all the streaming that's happening in my house. Just wave at me if I get choppy.
All right.
Yeah, so I wanted to start with, the purpose of the Planning and Development Committee from the Area Commission's website. We are to explore what funds are available to implement plans of the Clintonville area. So we're primarily working from the 2009 neighbor plan and ideas that were in that, in addition to a couple other plans that the city has done for our neighborhood over the years. And providing opportunities for interested parties in the general population to participate and discuss these issues, which we've done a couple of different ways. And then working proactively with other community-based organizations. I think emblematic of that is teaming up with Clintonville Incorporated to install the traffic signal box art program that you all are talking about at the beginning of the meeting that in just last month. So I think we've done a pretty good job of that over the years. I have been chair of the committee since 2012. A little bit about me for new commissioners that might not know me. I've lived in Clintonville since 2006. I have a master's degree in city regional planning from Ohio State, and I'm a principal in a landscape architecture planning and urban design firm headquartered here in Columbus called MKSK. And I work across the country on plans for downtown neighborhoods, corridors, districts, campus, institutions. Been, as I said, on the chair of the committee since 2012. We currently have 9 members on our committee representing each of the 9 districts in the area commission. It's been something that's been a goal of ours. Usually we get pretty close. We've only probably hit the mark with all 9 districts a couple times, but we've had between 9 and 13 people on the committee. And I went back and looked at all of our rosters in the last several years. We've had over 30 members of the committee. So we typically add 1 or 2 or 3 new members every year through the usual process of those nominations being passed forward to me as we get new ones in over the summer months. If all of you have been sort of paying attention to a lot of the work that we've been focused on since 2012, or the 2 rounds of urban infrastructure fund or URF funding, urban infrastructure recovery fund, tough to say, that has brought more than $2 million of improvements to our neighborhood since 2012. And so we work to implement those, provide design guidance on those. So there's a 2012 round of funding. All of those items have been implemented. The 2015 round of funding, the only thing left to go is 1 median on Indianola. It's still on our list, as well as, I believe, a section of sidewalk on Indianola that hasn't yet been put in, but I'm under the understanding from the city that the sidewalk on the west side of Indianola from Garden to Jeffrey will be constructed, that it's currently out to bid, part of a larger bid package for the entirety of the city with a sidewalk contractor.
I'm sorry, Chair Overbeck, we have reached our 3-minute conclusion.
Okay.
Believe me, nobody knows more than me that you cannot pitch. You do not have an elevator pitch for your role and your accomplishments and your long list of contributions to this community. So, but congratulations on a very successful implementation of the utility box artwork. And we very much appreciate your continued hard work going forward.
And one last thing on that, the number of votes we got from the community on that were 984, and we had 42 individuals donate to that project. So great community support for that.
984 people of our community voted for the artwork.
Correct.
And how many financial contributions?
42 individual contributions from neighbors.
That's fantastic. All right, well, thank you again. And I'll tell
Sure
you,
thing.
Mark Dervillis with the city of Columbus, he, every time I've spoken with him or I've met with him from time to time, you know, he says, I would defer to Andrew Overbeck. Is he still chairing your planning and development committee? And yeah, he is. So keep up the good work, Andrew. We appreciate you.
Sure thing.
All right, we'll move on to Chair Ann Heckner with our election committee. and her job has not been easy. We've made it very difficult for her, but I'll let her go ahead and toot her own horn. You're muted, Ann. Ann, can you unmute? Just, there you go.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think the election committee is very special. We are very different from your other committees who provide information for the commission on which to make their decisions. That's not something we do. We are really more directly responsible to the voters, to the people in Clintonville. And what we want to do is provide a structure to make sure they get people on the commission that represent those 9 areas. So anyway, I think we're very special. When I came on board, I was told by Libby, and I will hold her to this forever, that this was going to be a sleepy little committee, and we would just, you know, never any problems with election committee, and years of experience, nothing exciting happens. Okay, so we've had any number of exciting elections. The good thing is we've had a good structure in place, and we've managed to work through all of our excitement and figure out a way to get people on the commission to represent their districts. So I consider that, particularly with the challenges we faced, and we'll face again. Actually, I don't think the COVID is going to be over. You know, we aren't going to be going to in-person polling only this coming May. We're going to have to do some creative thinking one more time at least in order to get through our elections. So anyway, it's been kind of an interesting committee, and we've had a lot of moving parts going on, but I think it's all worked. Right now there are 4 people on the committee, me and 3 others. Ideally, I would have 1 more person on the committee. The bylaws say that we should have 5. So that's kind of our biggest project right now, is to get fully staffed and then to start looking at the election rules and see how they're going to work for COVID in 2021.
Well, you know, we do appreciate you, and I thank you so much, because you've had to be very adaptable and very amendable with the COVID-19 mandates, and you made it happen for us. We didn't miss a beat, thanks to you. We did not miss a beat. And although I was the only candidate that provided a candidate nominating petition with 50 signatures, you were able to demonstrate a little bit of empathy and have the wherewithal to be able to say, look, this is crazy. BJ, you're insane. You had no business going out there and gathering signatures, but you know, you were able to modify the election rules a little bit to accommodate our new area commissioners who demonstrated enough zeal to serve on the committee in their voluntary capacity, and you made it happen. So thank you for that. And we do appreciate you. I mean, your background was, are you still with the League of Women Voters?
Yeah, I still do work with them.
Okay, all right. Keeping us honest always, and we appreciate you. Thank you for your committee report. Do we have Ryan Forshee here, or Zach? Zach
Hey,
is here.
It's Ryan Foshi. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Ryan.
Hey.
I see that Zach's here too. Why don't you go ahead and take the next 3 minutes and tell us a little bit about how awesome you are.
Sure. Hey, Zach, I'll share screen. We brought some show and tell. You seeing that screen?
Overachiever, yeah.
Okay. Just so that people get to know us better, we just prepared a little bit of this background. My name is Ryan Foshi. I was born in Texas, lived in New York for a while, and have been here in Clintonville for 8 years. Relevant to our work with Green Spot, I have an MPA from Columbia in environmental science and policy. I've worked as a local government consultant and in various capacities for many years. I've always been a big fan of volunteer programs at the local level, so I've worked with Green Spot for quite a long time, and I sit on their advisory board. I love doing the actual work, though. That's my favorite part of any of these local sustainability programs, is actually getting in there and doing the work. It's my favorite part. And I just wanted to say one thing, is that every positive action and all the actions that you as commissioners and the things that you work on all the time are a step in the right direction and a benefit to our neighbors and ourselves. And I'm glad to be a public servant.
Thank you, Ryan. Hey, Zach, welcome.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having Ryan and I this evening. And I want to say thank you to BJ and the rest of the commission, and a special thanks to Libby for introducing me to this opportunity. Libby, you've done a great job in kicking this off for Clintonville, and I'm really happy to be in this role here. A little bit about myself, though. I am born and raised here in Clintonville. I grew up on 2-Lane Road, where I currently own a house as well. So kind of back where I'm from. But most of my lived experience has been here in Clintonville. Just so you guys know, I'm graduated from John Carroll University with a degree in economics and a master's degree in climate science and solutions from Northern Arizona University. Here locally, I work for the Columbus Partnership and the Smart Columbus Initiative, where I lead our clean energy work and electric vehicle adoption. So I've got a lot of experience in the sustainability and clean energy space. So I'm really pleased and very excited to be in this co-chair role with Ryan. One of the things I'm excited to tackle is the strategy on how we can build upon the success of the Clintonville Green Spot program and the volunteer committee that we have. It's been an incredibly successful program, and I'm looking forward to expand and achieve some new bold goals for the community.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Is there a fourth slide there? Oh, there you go. There you go.
There
Ryan.
is. All right. So we've picked up from Libby, who has been a huge help and really inspiring. And it's been a weird year, but we thought we'd just give a little bit of news from Clintonville. So this summer we did 3 webinars for Green Spot. They were kids storytime webinars. That was School for Young Children, and did 1, and my wife did 2, just for some accomplishments here. And a member of our committee, Julie, did a really big native plant giveaway. That was great. That was affiliated with Green Columbus, but she's also on our committee. Recently, we did a cleanup at I-71 and North Broadway, the ramps, just this past weekend. That was great. That was led by a member of our committee as well, Annalisa, who does our social media work. Really spearheaded that. There was also a cleanup, as Libby mentioned earlier in the meeting, in Walhalla Ravine this past weekend. And people do cleanups all the time. There's a lot of things that we don't list here that like Adina Brook was helpful in getting us going on our work because of their experience doing it, I think, every single month. So yeah, Clintonville's great. And this is just a small bit of the work that's been done. But some headlines: Green Spot hit 20,000 members this year. There's a video about that, but that is a big milestone. Another really cool milestone is Indianola Informal became the first Green Spot school in the city.
Really?
That was just recently. And that was really led by a science teacher and the principal there. They've done a great job, and we're trying to get them more involved with our committee. So we've reached out, and we'll see what we can do together on that. But they pretty much did that all on their own. Lastly, Green Spot neighborhood, we have achieved that status officially. And there's a recognition video for Clintonville and a link. I guess, BJ, I can send you this afterwards.
Sure.
Aside from that recognition, we also received 2 free signs from the city. We went around thinking about where the best place for those might be, and an obvious first answer came up. It's at the farmers market. Just as you cross the street from Donato's, walking over towards Momentum Health, there's a good bit of sidewalk right there. That's where you'll see that first sign. So we do actually have a physical sign denoting our accomplishment of achieving a green spot neighborhood. The second sign is we're still thinking about and open to suggestions for sure, but we were thinking at Whetstone Park or close by, that entrance there where kind of all the traffic funnels, forget the name of the street, but we're working on the next sign. But those are just some of the pieces of things that we've been working on, and looking forward to really getting settled into our role, and hopefully doing a lot more work of different kinds of things once COVID clears up.
Well, we appreciate you very much, and you've done a lot, very much, thanks to your predecessor, Libby Weatherholt, who took that committee from scratch and said, "Oh yeah, we can make this a community-driven committee." And we made for sure that if we made it a standing committee, that it was going to be driven by the community. So we appreciate you when you were asked to carry the torch. We're very, very fortunate to have you both do that. So thank you. And congratulations again. We appreciate you making us look good.
Thanks, BJ. Excited about it.
All right. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to Commissioner Jim Garrison, who chairs our Historic Building Committee.
Yep. Thank you very much. As I mentioned in past months, COVID has really kind of put a little bit of a damper in terms of participation and activity in our committee. Nevertheless, there has been some implementation of some work, but a little bit of background on me and why I chose to kind of participate in this committee. I have a master's of architecture from Kent State with a concentration in urban design. And I've been working with a local architecture firm as a manager for well over a decade. And I live in Clintonville for the last about 12 years and always have been in a house that is getting up around 100 years old. So the historic element of that has always appealed to me. I've also done some work with the Historic American Building Survey and Historic American Engineering Record. Nevertheless, I think that in terms of the bylaws and how it lays out the Historic Building Committee, the task is essentially to kind of document buildings and their historic value along the primary corridors of Clintonville, along High Street as well as Indianola, and to help kind of guide decisions or questions with the commission, as well as help provide a resource and link people who are building owners or developers to get access to funding and programs that will help better their preservation of those properties. In the most recent several weeks, I suppose, it has emerged to me that there are a lot of desires for people wanting to work on their own houses. And so there are a lot of people spending time in their own houses. And I haven't been blind to the requests by people to want to find age-appropriate elements to kind of work on their properties. Just the other day, someone was looking for siding that was historically appropriate. So the most recent development that I'm going to share that is kind of in beta testing at the moment, I had spoken with Susan Keeney at the Columbus Landmarks, and they have a good program on residential work. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend going to their website. But what I have done today has started a group called the Clintonville Architectural Exchange. And that is going to be a resource for people to kind of, you know, if you're tearing down a garage and you want to give away some of the siding or windows or something like that, you can post on there and talk about some of the preservation elements. And you know, that's pretty much it. I think it's a fluid directive at this point to best serve the residents of Clintonville and what they're focused on, as well as keeping in touch with the larger scale historic documentation of the neighborhood.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. We appreciate your hard work, and it is incremental steps. And I know that the Historic Buildings Committee of this commission has worked in concert with the Clintonville Historical Society, and there's always works in progress and always good things happening. So good luck in building your committee. Please let Ty or myself know if we can ever be of some assistance.
I would want to just, speaking of that, I think we may have skipped over the technology.
Yeah, I wanted to save him for last.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Ty, you've got 3 minutes to tell us all the work you've been doing. So you're going to give us a spiel that's going to be a lot like Andrew's, is that you're not going to be able to fit it in 3 minutes.
Well, we don't really do anything. You don't really see anything that we do. So, you know, nothing happens on our side. But in all seriousness, I'll say that most of the work that we do are mirror my superhero counterparts, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We work in the shadows. So nobody really sees it, but hopefully more people read it. A lot of our goals are really, you know, just trying to drive more engagement, I would say, across those different platforms. I know Stephen mentioned the Twitter feed earlier, but yeah, the website posts, Facebook posts, trying to get the different events out there. I think some of the future things will be more about streamlining those items, but just trying to make it easier to get all the information out there. But I'm also glad to hear there's some additional interest out there. I still need to meet up with Brian, so you know, hopefully we can get the schedules cleared out. And BJ, I might want some help just to maybe use one of these meetings to coordinate with that. And then I know there was a green spot person, and if there's the person taking their gap year in here, you know, we can build the group up here a little bit. But
well, back in March, we held our CAC meeting 1 week later than typically planned, but other than that, we haven't missed a beat, and that's largely in part due to you and being that conduit of information, keep you up on your toes the whole time. And in my meeting with the city attorney's office, when we had the COVID-19 protocol about doing online and virtual meetings, when he reviewed that checklist with me, he said at the very beginning, I'm not worried about Clintonville. I'm not worried about Clintonville. You guys know what you're doing. I already know what you have out there. You know, we have the most sophisticated means of communicating with the public. You have all the socials, the Facebook, the Twitter. You maintain a website that's full with a calendar, with scheduled events, when there are meetings, the agendas are posted. You know, you don't do this, but I know I do. So as my little contribution to the Tech and PR Committee, there's a CAC hotline number that I've answered, and many of the commissioners have gotten forwarded voicemails or voice to text email messages from that CAC telephone number. So, I mean, we're out there, you know, no matter if somebody wants to email, somebody wants to go to our socials, somebody wants to pick up the phone and call somebody, we are on the receiving end of that. And that's in large part due to you. Thank you, Ty, for all your hard work. All right. Let's go ahead and go back to our applicant. Terry, do you have that revised site plan?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, I was trying to find the mute button.
That's okay. All right. You are ready to screen share?
Yes, I am. There we go. I think I got it up there now.
Okay, all right. It's even warm. It even feels like it just came right off the presses. Okay, so I want to go ahead and reiterate, read for the variance request as part of your application. Business owner Arian Permetti asked for a variance at 3369 Indianola Avenue to reduce the required parking from 26 spaces to 17 spaces. With the understanding that one handicap parking space per 25 spaces is required, we now have a site plan that demonstrates a true accessible parking space. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at this site plan, and I guess you know, we'll ask the commission. Are there any commissioners who have any questions for the applicant about the revised site plan?
I have one question for Terry. Could you clarify the distance between space number 11 and space number 12?
It is 9 feet.
9 feet. Thank you. So, and I'm just pointing out that my understanding of the requirements in the ADAG is you could theoretically reduce the access down to 60 inches. So what I'm observing is that you have still within this design a little bit of flexibility to ensure that you address accessibility for space number 11.
That is correct.
Okay.
Could I ask, this might just be a failure of my own technology capabilities and zooming in on a screen share, but could you read what are the words beneath 11 and 12 with the arrows going down and up? What's that? What does that say?
Okay, let's see if I can.
Oh, even better. Thank you.
There we go. I thought I could do that. Anyway, above there's this new ADA parking sign that's pointing to the building right above 11. And then at there's an ADA symbol there, and it says ADA parking space. And below that, existing asphalt pavement.
Got it. Thank you so much for zooming in. I appreciate that.
Good call, Commissioner Bolton. I did not want to show my age. But you're younger than me, so I'm very grateful to the opportunity that you asked.
At my age, I use Zoom a lot.
All right, are there any more questions from the commissioners for this applicant or his architect? Then is there a motion on the floor that we are prepared to vote for this variance request, provided the condition that we use this site plan for the approval, and we attach that to the standard recommendation form?
I move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, let's go ahead and call roll. Commissioner, District 1. District 1. District 1, may we please have a verbal vote? Okay, District 1, we cannot hear you. May I please have a thumbs up or thumbs down? District 1? District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 6 is absent. District 7?
Yes.
District 8?
Yes.
District 9 too shall vote yes. Commissioner Votero for District 1.
Hello,
Hi,
can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
I'm going to vote no. My frustration is I still don't think Terry has an ADA space here. He needs to have
Okay.
5 feet. He needs to have 5 feet on the driver's side, an 8-foot space, and an 8-foot space. I think he can make something work here, but I'm going to vote no.
Okay, so the applicant's variance request does pass with a vote of 7 yeses, 7 to approve, and 1 disapprove, and 1 absentee. All right. Thank you for your rework on that, Terry. We're very, very grateful to your notion of being able to scramble and do that.
You're welcome.
All right, and if you could please email me that site plan. Email me or Stephen this particular revised site plan so that we can attach that with the standard recommendation form.
I sure will.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so because we had to entertain several votes and get this tabled, we are now at 9:14. We have one last item on the agenda, and this is the proposed CAC bylaws change suggested by Commissioner Mike Weinman. So Commissioner Weinman, I'd like you to go ahead and present the context behind your proposal, and let's open it up for discussion before we adjourn.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to go through this line by line to give you what my thoughts on this are. Beginning June 1, the commission chairperson shall give notice that volunteers are needed for the standing committees in Section A. So my thought here is we have a lot of people in Clintonville. We have a lot of different ideas, and we should be able to hear those ideas and have people on these committees that give a diversity of thought. So the timeline there is to give some folks, the chair would, give notice. We have the platforms here, whether it's Instagram, or Twitter, Facebook, webpage, and we can also do press releases. And there's nothing that says that, I'm sure the Spotlight and the Booster would be happy to put that information out there that we're seeking volunteers for these positions. Going down the second line, the volunteers shall submit a resume. This is something that, we just saw with the Green Spot folks. It could be something like that. It gives us a background on who these folks are and work history and that sort of thing, and why they're interested. And within that, they can indicate what committee they'd like to be on and whether or not they'd like to be the chair of that committee. So those resumes and things will come in. We'd set a deadline, and then the chair would go through those resumes and those indications on what committees and whether or not these people would like to be chair. And from that, the chair would give us, the rest of the commission, 1 week before, the ability to look over these resumes and see who she has chosen as members and as chairs. And that would put us right up to the August vote. And one of the reasons why I'd like to do this is, we're accountable to the folks that elect us. And right now, it just doesn't seem as though the commissioners, I could just picture a scenario where some member of my district comes up to me and asks me, why did you vote for so-and-so? Why did you vote for Tom Smith? He wants 30-foot parking garages on Indianola. And right now, what do I say to them? Well, the committee chair, you have to take it up with the committee chair. That's unacceptable to me. That should be on us, on who these folks are on those committees, because we're the voice of our districts. That's why I'd like to shift this away from the chair of the committees and to the elected commissioners. To select these, right now it just looks like we're a rubber stamp, and there just doesn't seem to me that there's enough vetting that goes on here.
May I say something?
Okay, no. Commissioner Wyman, are you complete in your presentation of the proposed bylaws change?
Yeah, so the last two sentences are just existing language. The commission shall approve the membership of the standing committees at the August regular meeting. Appointments to the standing committee shall be for 1 year until the next August meeting. So that's just existing language.
So essentially the bylaws change. I just want to isolate what's different than what we already have in practice is that I think if I understand you correctly, I just want to make sure that I understand. You would like for the CAC chair to select after soliciting the Clintonville community, and people submit their letters of interest to the CAC that they'd like to serve on the committee, and they accompany their brief resume or their bio. You would like for the CAC chair to be the recipient of all of that information and then disseminate to the rest of the commission for them to review, and then we execute a vote for each committee member, and then I select the committee chair if
No,
during their head.
the way it's structured under this language is you would select the members and the chair and then forward that to us for a vote.
So I would select the committee.
The chairperson. Right. Commission chair shall submit the names of selected committee members, and that would be whoever the chair would be, who they select.
Okay, so I would select.
And then under Robert's rules, someone can make a motion to accept all those names, or there could be an objection. So say someone doesn't want Tom Smith, then it would come down to an individual vote.
So the
through Robert's rules.
So the CAC chair selects all of the committee members? Is that what you're suggesting?
That's right.
The CAC chair selects all of the committee members.
That's right. So it'd be just like on the state level, if it's a commission that the governor's putting together, he would submit those names of who we'd like to see on that commission to the Senate.
Okay.
And then the Senate would vote.
And then of those members who also expressed an interest to chair the committee, the CAC chair would also select the committee chair?
That's right.
Okay. So we've got
It's not much different than what we have now with you selecting the chair
It's
of the
very
committees.
different.
Okay, hold on. So we have, okay, and then after I select the committee and I select the chair, who devises the slate?
Well, they would indicate what committee they'd like to be on.
So what?
And whether or not they'd be the chair. So if someone wants to be, for example, technology committee, if I want to be on the someone would like to be on the technology committee, they would indicate I'd like to be on the technology committee.
Okay.
You know, so they would make that choice themselves. You're not going to just get 50 names and then decide which committee they go on. Under this, they would indicate what committee they'd like to be on.
Okay.
So, you know, so that wouldn't be an issue there. You wouldn't have to pick and choose going through resumes saying, I think this person be a good fit on, you know, zoning, this person be a good fit on historical buildings. You know, they would tell you which committee they'd like to be on.
Okay. 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 And so annually, I mean, you did, what I like what you did was you were clear and specific about a timeline and soliciting for members to serve on each committee. That's something that we already do. And we have, so when you think about, let's just take, for example, the Green Spot Committee. The Green Spot Committee has more active members than all of the other committees probably combined. And that committee is only 2 years old. And that was made from scratch. And at that time, Chair Libby Weatherholt took the initiative and said, this will be, you know, let's throw it out there. Let's follow the city of Columbus's lead. And they're doing all these, you know, Green Spot neighborhood initiatives. Let's be one. Let's let Clintonville kind of shine and do that. So Libby from scratch, I remember having these discussions, and Commissioner Votero, I remember saying, you know, do we need one more responsibility? Do we need one more bureaucratic wheel to spin? Do we need one more ounce of responsibility? Can we commit to making this a committee and having it comprised of can it be community driven? And at that time, I remember Libby said, yes, we will. This will not be shouldered upon our responsibility. And that ideal came through to fruition and has spoken to that in today's presentation. So I guess, you know, as somebody who has several, you know, several responsibilities. I'm a business owner, and I do a lot of, this is just one of my voluntary roles. But I guess that's an awful lot to ask somebody, whether it's me or somebody else who's the CAC chair. That's an awful lot of responsibility. So, you know, I guess it gives us food for thought. That would indeed take a bylaws change.
I have a question.
So let's go ahead and open it up to the floor to see if anybody has any questions about this proposal to either me or Commissioner Wyman. Commissioner Weatherholt.
Commissioner Weinman, did you submit a resume to become a commissioner?
Nope, I was elected by my district.
And so why are we asking volunteers to do more than you did?
They can go around with the petition and get elected to the commission if they like.
But they are volunteering to be a member of the committee. It seems to me a brief statement of interest would be better than a resume. After all, we are citizens. I mean, what are the qualifications for president?
The ones laid out in the Constitution of the United States?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Got to be what, 35 and a citizen, right?
Born in the United States.
Yep.
And you're also vetted by some 300 million people.
Not necessarily. Okay. And so here we are asking people to submit huge resumes or a resume where a brief statement of interest and being a resident of Clintonville should be plenty. I serve on the Planning and Development Committee. I don't qualify. I mean, what are the qualifications to be on the Planning and Development Committee? I am a citizen member who can say to the Planning and Development Committee, this isn't going to work. We don't necessarily need to have everybody be qualified.
I didn't set up any qualifications in my proposal. The qualifications can be met. It's whatever the chair decides what the qualifications are, the chair of the commission.
Well,
she's looking at she sees that someone's a business owner. She could put them on the planning and zoning committee, that way. And I didn't go as specific to say you had to have a master's degree in urban planning.
Well, I think a resume denotes that you are looking for qualifications, and I would say a brief statement of interest in being a part of a committee is enough.
I think in I'm not sure that the process
So
works.
next, we had a hand raiser. So we have next, we have Chair Ann Heckner with the Election Committee, and then third, we have Chair Stephen Hardwick with the Zoning and Variance Committee. So we'll go to you, Chair Heckner.
Okay. I don't have any real comment about the resume issue, but going back to how that section is right now, it looks like what is getting dropped out is that the chairperson of the election committee shall recommend to the commission members of that committee who shall be non-commissioners. And then there's two important things in that sentence. One is that we're losing if we would adopt the proposed language. We're losing that whole sentence. And that is where it says that the committee shall be non-commissioners. And I think that's very important because we are special. And I think a lot of committees can have a commissioner on it. It's very valuable to that committee. We really don't want incumbent commissioners or commissioners who are running for re-election on the election committee. And that's why that's in there. I feel very strongly about that piece of it. There's also the piece that there's kind of another screening level for the election committee, and that is the chairperson shall recommend to the commission members of that committee. They're still appointed by the commission, but there is a screen there that says you and your 4 children, you commissioner and your 4 children are not going to be the election committee. I as chairman am not going to recommend you. And I don't think, I mean, those things need to be screened for. We have not had these kinds of problems in my experience here for the last 5 years. I have heard historically that there have been kind of conflict of interest, kind of accusations. I think we need to make sure that we are in a position that that doesn't happen. It hasn't happened recently. And I think that maybe our sensitivity to it has waned, but I think we always need to have those guardrails in place.
All right, Chair Hardwick.
Well, I think there are some good ideas in here, but I think bylaws change is not the right way to go about them. First of all, it's with the exception of zoning and variance, and I didn't realize green spot, we usually have trouble getting people to join committees in the first place. So it would seem to put additional barriers in front of people who want to volunteer their time might not be a good idea. And then to lock these into the bylaws. And what if in the future commissioners decide that a short bio is good enough and don't need the resume? Well, you've now locked yourself in. And what's the better way of doing it? Well, I think it's just ask the committee chairs to do it differently. And I think the most important idea that he had in there was getting you the names earlier so you can see them. And I get that that makes a lot more sense. But I just want to point out a few things that have changed with zoning and variance merely on request. We had Chair White wanted us to change the meeting time. We moved it because I still think it's 6 of one, half dozen of another, but she's the chair and she made the request, and that makes a good, when Commissioner Garrison suggested doing a list of deadlines for people to know when they need to get stuff in, we did that. And I think it was Commissioner Votero who suggested putting in the minutes what the committee members, their reasoning, so that any committee member could independently get their say, so they could give the commission their reasoning. So, and they'd have total control over that, because I think this also misunderstands a little bit what the role of the committee is. The committee's job is to help the commission make its decision. We are not a democratic organization. You are, and I don't think you rubber stamp anything. I think tonight's what you did on the third variance shows very clearly you don't rubber stamp what we do. And I think that's fine and that's good. And in terms of even picking members, the one new member of the Zoning and Variance Committee was the person recommended by Chair White this year. And this is someone from her district that she knew, and we listen. Even things like the publicity that wants to be done, that's something that's completely within the commissioner's control by a majority vote. If you want to put out a call to people to send in information, you can do that right now without a bylaws change. So I guess my strong suggestion is that there are good ideas in here, and I think the first step in dealing with changes is to have conversations. Oh, one last thing. Do you really want to be talking publicly about resumes and saying, I don't want you because of this? That may be weighing resumes which have personal information in public. People may not, I still think that would be a deterrent. So one thing I will promise you, same thing Commissioner Weidman as all of you, is that we will continue to listen to what you have to say, because we serve you, you serve the community, and we serve you. And if we're not serving you in a way, then we need to change that. And anyone who thinks that the committee rubber stamps the chair hasn't seen how many votes I've lost in the Zoning and Variance Committee, how many times I've been in the minority, and that's fine, because that's the way things work. Our goal is not to tell you how to vote, is to give you the information to make your informed decision. And I thank you for giving me this time.
All right, and I think that we had Commissioner Votero.
Yeah. Having a little trouble with my audio here. Can you hear me, Commissioner White?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, earlier when the vote came up, I wasn't being unresponsive. My audio wasn't working. Just to let everybody know, I was trying to get the sound worked out. I think there are good ideas here that Commissioner Weinman's put forth, but I think maybe some of this boils back down to, I think Stephen Hardwick mentioned it here. In past years, maybe we've just had the chairs use a process, and maybe we were a little bit better about being visible and soliciting participation. I think in the past, maybe we did a better job of putting notices in the booster, making sure there were notices on the website, and maybe amidst the pandemic and everything else that was going on, us scrambling for the meetings, maybe a little bit of attention got taken away from that. But I think in the past, we've done a good job of making a call for interest. And Libby makes a good point that all we asked for in the past was just a statement of interest, why somebody wants to participate in one of these commissions or committees, and allow the committee chairs to sift through those and make recommendations. But we all had a chance to look at those responses that we got, and there were people there that ended up not maybe joining a committee after all, that we, in my case, I reached out to, and they got involved in other ways in the community. So I think it is a matter that we should be very careful not to look gift horses in the mouth. When people step up and want to volunteer, we should do everything we can to encourage that volunteerism. And I think more often than not, these committees are staffed with everybody who's expressed interest, and very, very seldom, I think, are people turned away from participation in a committee. We make it a point to appoint the committee rosters once a year. But again, if people want to attend committee meetings and for all intents and purposes become sort of ad hoc committee members, they can attend those committee meetings, they can participate in it. Maybe next year they'll be named to the committee if they're not already on that roster. So, I think maybe we need to do a little bit better job of making sure that when we when we come to the meeting and we're presented with that roster, that we're all familiar with those. I certainly remember my very first year on the commission. You know, I sit down amongst what essentially was a group of 8 strangers I've never met before, and we have to elect officers and appoint committees. I had no idea who any of these people were. You know, so I think maybe being a little bit proactive in making sure that maybe we're familiar with who the people are. And tonight was a great chance for us, if we didn't already know, to have a chance to meet the committee chairs and have them introduce themselves again to us. And so maybe part of this is just returning faithfully to that process that we had, that maybe because of the pandemic, maybe we shied away from a little bit, and we could return to that solicitation process and being more visible about looking for people and putting them on committees. I think maybe that's at the heart of what this question that Commissioner Wyman is raising is.
I don't want to leave any room for conjecture, and I certainly don't want to surmise what Commissioner Wyman, why Commissioner Wyman is proposing this. I'd like to just ask Commissioner Wyman, is there something, you know, I'm trying to glean some input, glean some support, and trying to better understand why now? Why do we have to deem the sole responsibility upon one person, the chair of the Clintonville Area Commission? Why do we have to give complete authority to one person for all of these responsibilities? And why can't it not be a shared responsibility with the committee chair, for number one? And number two, I don't think that's, you know, I get what you're saying about soliciting interest. That's in part why, if you go back and look at the minutes, for May, June, and July, there was much engagement with our tech and PR chair, Ty, when we're trying to generate interest for these committees. That time of year, we always try to engage the tech and PR committee and trying to get little snippets and tidbits out there. And, you know, and some of the implementation of these projects, like the utility box artwork, if we're putting it out there and somebody says, oh, that's really cool, and I'm going to do some research, and somebody sees that the CAC Planning and Development Committee was behind that, they might say, hey, I want to be part of that. So I think the proof is in the pudding. I don't think it's as much waving a flag saying, hey, you know, it's not like Rush Week. It's not like Greek Week in college. I think that when people are engaged with the CAC and its processes, I think that they, you know, I think that there's something that sparks their interest and they want to be part of that. And, you know, and while the slates are submitted once a year, if somebody has an interest and they want to be part of a committee, they can, but they can always attend. They can always, all these meetings are public. Every committee meeting is public. Everything's publicly posted on the CAC calendar for transparency purposes. Members of the public are, you know, are welcome to attend. There are no closed door sessions. And it would just seem to me like we could probably accomplish a good bit of what you're asking with a written timeline. And I don't think a written timeline, the special meeting is already in the bylaws. And I think that we could work off of that and your suggested timeline for soliciting for interest. But I'd really like to learn more about, you know, I don't want anybody to assume why you're proposing this. I'd like to learn more from you, Commissioner Wyman. Why now? Why are you proposing a bylaws change? And why do you want the CAC chair to have complete authority over choosing the members of the standing committees?
The timeline came up when this came to my attention really is when we voted for these slates of on who is going to be on this committee. And I just recognized that we're doing nothing more than being a rubber stamp. We're getting a list of names and we're just saying yay or nay. And there was no vetting process for the commissioners, none at all. As a matter of fact, in August, when we voted on a committee, one of the committees, a name was added at the very last minute. Oh, I was just given this name by another chair. I'd like to add this person to my committee. There's no accountability there. There's no transparency there. And that's what I want to combat. I want to get away from this lack of transparency and this lack of accountability to who these committee members are. And if the chair doesn't feel that she's capable enough to whittle through these names, these chairs of the committees are not elected by the citizens of Clintonville. They're not elected by us, by them. You know, you're making the appointment of who the chairs are. They're putting together a slate of whoever they would like to have, and then we're rubber stamping them. There's no accountability. There's no transparency. There's no diversity of thought there, you know, and by, you know, setting up a timeline on the solicitation, I want it codified. I want it codified that we're going to do the solicitation. You know, not, it's just not, you know, when it happens, it happens. It needs to be codified so that everyone can go to our constitutional bylaws and see, okay, on June 1st, they're going to start soliciting who these volunteers should be. You know, and because the way it's done now, you know, it's too much is given over to unelected chairs of these committees. And then we just turn around and rubber stamp them.
You want, excuse me.
Okay.
Rutherford, please wait until you're called upon. So you would much prefer, rather than the committee chairs be empowered for the selection and the growth of their committees to generate interest, to generate interest, to build their committee, rather than the committee chairs be empowered by selection, you would want the sole responsibility, accountability to the CAC chair. You want the CAC chair to have a rubber stamp.
Why would it be a rubber stamp? You're getting resumes or letters of interest, whatever we call them at the end. You're getting that information. You're going through that information and you're deciding who that should be. And then we're given an opportunity, when you give us those resumes and what your selections are, we're given the opportunity to review those. And then we vote accordingly.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand. All right, Commissioner Weatherholt.
And quite frankly, you know, it shouldn't be up to the chair to grow their committees. That should be up to the commissioners. We're elected to do that. We should be elected to do that. It shouldn't be up to the chairs. They're not elected. They might be appointed by you, whoever the chairperson is, but they're not elected. There's no accountability there. There's no transparency there. And, you know, that's what's needed.
Commissioner Weatherholt.
Several comments. I really appreciated Commissioner Votero's comments. They were right on. First of all, during the bylaw, in the proposed bylaws changes, it says that the commission chairperson shall give notice that volunteers are needed beginning June 1st. The problem is between June 1st and the first meeting of July, the chair could change. So that in itself is a problem with the bylaws, because the people would have presented their statement of interest to a chairperson who is no longer there, and then that would have to change. And secondly, there are times where the chairperson of the commission, and I've served on a commission like this, where the chair has accrued enough power, but is elected by about 5 people in that district, that small enough numbers who come to vote, as in, I remember contested vote that was 8-7 in a district. Now, when I ran my first time, there were over 300 votes. So that is very unusual. But when you have only 15 people voting in one district, that does not really talk to me about being accountable or constitutionally. So I think the less one unilateral power that we give to the commissioner, the better. And again, we are all volunteers. We're worth every penny we're paid. And we need to grow as many people throughout our entire commission area. And that is done by soliciting people's names from throughout the area. When I was chair for 3 years, and there were only two people that I had to say no to on placing them with the committee that they wanted. One was because the person wanted zoning and variance, and that committee is limited to 9 people, and there was not an opening at that point. And the other one was wanted to be on a committee that the chair thought there were like 15 on that committee at that point. I did offer that person another committee appointment, and the person said no. But otherwise, we have always placed every single volunteer on a committee so that they could become active with our commission.
Right. Are there any more questions to be posed to Commissioner Wyman from the commission?
I have one comment, if I may. I didn't necessarily want to drag this on, and I respect everyone's opinions, and I think that, I thank everybody for sticking around for this long. I agree that there should be a level of transparency in the process so that, at least it's better spelled out. But one of the things that I did want to point out, and I am not an expert on this, so I would defer to possibly Chair Heckner on the official part of it, but my understanding of our role as commissioners, despite the fact that we are elected within the community, our role as a commissioner is ultimately given as an appointment by the mayor, and not necessarily as an elected by the people kind of situation. So given the fact that we are all appointees of our positions and not necessarily technically elected officials, I question the whole process, I suppose. But nevertheless, I'm open to continuing this conversation about how we move forward about making it satisfactory and transparent to the community, because I think that that the process being more open could be a benefit. I don't know that I have all of the logistics and technicalities worked out. And as far as the language goes, I would end up probably deferring to Libby on what the precise language is anyway. But I just wanted to mention that, and I didn't want to take up too much time. I apologize.
All right. Are there any more questions for Commissioner Wyman from the commission?
I don't really have a question. I just have a comment.
Okay.
I do think it's been kind of a dysfunctional year with COVID and everything is so much more arm's length. I think one useful change we could do in anticipating that next year may not be entirely normal either. I mean, Ty's had a hard time recruiting for communications. Jim's had a hard time with the historic buildings. Maybe we have to start way earlier than June in trying to get volunteers. Maybe we need people from like Cliff from the Spotlight to do an article about our various committees and getting people to submit even earlier. And I'm fine with the resume, but maybe it doesn't have to be a full-blown work resume, but just another, hey, let me tell you a little bit about myself and how I might be able to help this committee, right? So a little bit of a insight into who's applying. So I just think we should start even earlier, like maybe March, because of course, zoning and variance, no problem. There's 9 people. We replaced Paul Bingo. That's great. Green Spot, Libby oversaw a great transition with other people taking over there. I had always thought that planning and development was the largest committee. How many members are on that? Do you know offhand, BJ?
Andrew?
We have 9. Currently, we've had as many as 30.
Okay, okay. So maybe, yeah.
And it just depends on interest. It just depends on interest year to year. Sometimes there's a lot of people who are interested. And honestly, the only time that I've, not accepted someone who's put their name forth and given me the bio is I'm not able to get in touch with them. They don't return phone calls. I always have a phone call with everybody, get understanding, grab a coffee, whatever, get understanding of what it is that they're interested in, and make sure that they are up for the being on the committee. So the only times I haven't gone forward with someone is because I can't get in touch with them.
Yeah, exactly. And we all know sometimes we let someone know they made the committee and then they show up once and never again. So there's a lot of crazy things that happen, but I think starting earlier could help us. And then Ann's comment, if we, yes, I agree, there should not be any commissioners on the election committee. And in an ideal world, there should be at least one commissioner that is a member of every committee. And I think we have pretty much achieved that. But as far as who makes the final decision, well, maybe committee chairs are involved now, but the commission, maybe we should study more once the applications come in and take more responsibility. I don't know. I haven't had any neighbor particularly complain to me about any certain member of a committee and how did they get on that. Because of course we all know you can apply, you just send your letter of interest. But I think outreach should start earlier. And I guess that would be my point. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Minister.
I'm sorry, I'll wait my turn.
Go ahead, Commissioner Overbeck.
I just, it's okay. The only thing that I think about the proposal put forward, and I agree, more outreach and, doing it earlier and getting the word out. I think COVID probably tempered the sort of response this year for sure from people. Usually there's a couple folks that I'm reaching out to that have expressed interest every year. The only thing that I sort of wonder about in the proposal is this sort of phrase diversity of thought. Clintonville has, I think, a lot of diversity of thought, and it's present on our committee as well. And whether I'm vetting someone's resume or you're vetting someone's resume or their bio statement and letter of interest, I don't know if there's any way to tell what someone's diversity of thought is until they've been in 5 or 6.
I'll text Chair
meetings. So, can you hear me now, or is it still unstable? Okay, sorry. The only way to tell if someone's, what someone's opinion is on anything is to have them on a committee. And I don't think there's any way to tell someone's diversity of thought from a resume or a bio statement. So I don't know how this, that the proposal would meet the stated goals.
I just want to say that in discovery of this open discussion, which I think is very productive and very fulfilling in trying to uncover the root cause for this ask, for this request, is I'm not hearing that it's a lack of transparency. I mean,
There's no transparency. We don't know who these people are.
Allow me to finish. I don't think that it's a lack of, we cannot be more transparent than we are. we are probably the forerunner of all area commissions with putting it out there, a calendar, a publicly disseminated agenda. We have our socials. We have everything out there for the world to see. I don't think that it's lack of transparency. Now, could it be that maybe we don't go all in, allocate part of the budget, which we already approved the budget for the year. We didn't approve a budget to go and do press releases to generate members for committees. We didn't do that. That was never brought up into discussion when Commissioner Carpenter presented her budget. So we never allocated part of the budget to do press releases to generate interest for committees, number one. I would have loved to have had that conversation back then if somebody, if that sparked any kind of roadblock that this commission had on transparency. But we have gone over and above the city's minimum standards for how we conduct business. We exemplify. This is why other chairs of other area commissioners call us and say, teach us how to do 100% mail-in ballot election. Teach us how you do this. Teach us how you do a Zoom meeting. Teach us how you do this. We are the head of the class when it comes to how an area commission facilitates business. We have been more transparent, and other commissions don't have the level of interest. Other commissions suffer when they can't even get quorum to even execute a vote. There are commissions who are out there like that. There are commissions who do not have 6 standing committees. We are transparent. We put it all out there. We do. Could we do a better job of self-imposing a deadline and making part of our budgetary expenditure to do a media release to generate interest for committees? Yes. Do I think that we can do that without a bylaws change? Yes. Do I think that the chair of the CAC should have absolute authority over the selection of all committee members and the chairs? I don't know how I feel about that. That doesn't really speak to a diverse thought process. That speaks to one person's unilateral decision making. And that's what's got me tripped up. Could we self-impose a timeline to maybe gather more consensus, more people to volunteer for these committees? Yes, absolutely. Do I think that warrants a bylaws change? No. It just means that we talk about it and we put it on the calendar and we ask for a budgetary allocation in next year's budget to do that. So that's kind of where I'm at. Are there any, I believe there's one member of the public that would like to say something.
Can I just jump in real quick?
Yeah.
A press release doesn't cost anything.
That's not true.
All you have to do is write the press release and mail it out.
Not true.
I'll donate the money for the stamp if you want to.
Have you checked with Spotlight on if they don't accept some sort of, Spotlight is like a minimum for a small, I don't know, 8th page or whatever is $250. Booster does have clubs.
Speaking, I will mute everybody. Give me a moment to speak. We had this discussion when we tried to generate for a better improved election turnout. We had this same conversation packaged with a different color ribbon, and it was about how do we get more people participating in the elections. And we did that. And we spent, I want to say, Chair Heckner, I'm calling upon you, $1,400. $1,400, which was 57% of this commission's budget, annual budget for one election. We spent nearly $1,300 of the $2,500 budget for election season. We surveyed people. We surveyed every single voter who came in. And what was the answer and how they found out about the election? What was the prevailing answer from that survey?
Kari is here. She can probably address that better.
All right.
Love to.
Go ahead. If you know the answer.
Yeah, the clear and away winner of how people found out about the election was the sign that was in front of the library on election day and the night that we had the extra early voting day that is in our election rules. So that was the best advertisement for that for the election. It wasn't the articles in the newspaper, not the articles. Yeah, it was. We had articles, we had the advertisement, we had the sign outside, we had word of mouth, we had the candidate herself or himself as choices for the survey, and the tick marks were far and away the sign that was outside, and very little was about newspapers. And we did Facebook, we did everything we could, and so I don't know if you're leading into my question or my participation as a member of the community.
I want to close this thought. Hold on just a moment. I want to close this thought because most people did say that they recognized the sign in front of the library. And we've had this discussion in prior CAC meetings, and we've even had representatives from the Clintonville Booster, This Week newspaper, attend our meetings, and why the distribution is so poor. Not every household gets the booster. We found the booster in some of those Swaco dumpsters that we like to talk about. We found 20 bundles of This Week newspapers for the week dated of the current distribution stacked in the Charity Newsies dumpsters. The booster is not guaranteed delivery to every household. And the Clintonville Spotlight is subscription based. I don't subscribe to the Clintonville Spotlight. I follow them on social media, but I don't get I don't subscribe. I don't pay for a subscription. So to me, to spend half of our budget for generating interest for committee members seems a little excessive. So I just want to speak to the budgetary allocation and why media releases do indeed cost money. So I want to go ahead and go back to Kari Ingen, who did make a public comment in our Zoom chat, and I'll go ahead and let her pose her question.
My only comment was I think the committees are a great way for people who are in the public and in Clintonville to participate. And the fact that they are open and they're basically your neighbors who are in these committees, that it encourages, just by nature of what they are, encourages participation. And I think the feeling I get when somebody asks me for a resume for something is one of intimidation. And I just feel like that might suppress interest rather than encourage interest. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, Commissioner Wyman, did you have anything to respond to any of that?
I'd like to defer to Commissioner Bolton. I think she wanted to jump in here for some time now.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Bolton.
I feel like my comments have shifted over the last little bit of conversation, so they might come out a little jumbled, and I apologize. I'm curious as to whether we could try, and maybe this has happened in the past and I'm new to the organization, rather than a paid ad with a local paper, if there's harm in sharing a free media advisory press release with the Spotlight or with, I mean, I do that regularly for my 9 to 5 earned media as opposed to a paid ad. And the worst case scenario is that they would shoot it down or not cover it in the paper, right? I don't know. I would volunteer to help out with something like that if it could potentially yield some more volunteer interest. And I'm super sensitive to the comments around not disincentivizing volunteerism, because I know it's, you know, a big commitment for folks to give up their personal family time and their work time to put in time with our committees, and I value that greatly. So if a resume is off-putting to folks, I am sensitive to that. But I did feel, and maybe it was because I was new, I rolled with it, but it is a little bit odd to me to vote on the slate coming before us without any information about the folks. So I think Commissioner Botera had kind of talked about the process being a little bit different this year in light of the pandemic, and having some more interaction with those applicants in the past. So I think that a lot of the spirit of what feel a little bit more, I don't think that we're, as an organization, not transparent. I value, BJ, your comments around, you know, everything that we put online, everything that we are able to lead in as compared to a lot of our fellow commissions around the city. But I think that we could, you know, we could see, if not a meet and greet or a few sentences about what they're hoping to do on the committee, some type of interaction before we make a vote on would go a long way for my conscience.
I would agree with a lot of what you said. I would agree with that. And I even kind of thought, when Commissioner Wyman first brought this to my attention, not with the proposed language for a bylaws change, but when he first mentioned in the meeting, we don't know anything about these people. You know, at that time, what went through my head was, it didn't trigger the need for a bylaws change. And it didn't make me want to question the transparency of these standing committees, but it simply made me think of, why don't we just, you know, there's no template. I was getting emails, this is my slate. These are the 4 members of my committee. These are the 28 members of my committee. I will say the Green Spot Committee, Commissioner Weatherholt submitted to me a spreadsheet of names, addresses, email addresses, telephone numbers, and am I missing a column, Commissioner Weatherholt?
We had a column about what their specialty or
Yes.
what their interest.
Yes. So I think that probably what might be more suited is, I get that. And I felt for Commissioner Wyman when he first said that. I thought, well, he is a new commissioner. He hasn't kind of attended these meetings like I have. And I immediately thought, how could I help new commissioners like Commissioner Wyman be a little bit more, not be ill-advised or underinformed when he goes to exercise a vote. And honestly, we were just going through the motions, voting for the annual slates like we do every other year. And you know, I get that. I get that the slate does need to be, maybe what we do is we produce a templated form, a spreadsheet, and I would love to start with Libby's gleaming example of that. Maybe what we need to do is devise a spreadsheet that provides a little bit more context behind the slate, rather than just get an email, here are my members. Because I was just getting emails with a list of names. Sometimes they said, well, I need one more person, but we'll work on that, you know, that kind of thing. But I get where Commissioner Wyman was coming from in the meeting when he said, I'm not voting, I'm abstaining because I don't know anything about these people. I get that. And maybe what we need to do is devise a form, a registration form that does lend a little bit more insight, a little bit more context to who these people who comprise our standing committees about. You know, but maybe that's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I do. And I do get the timeline for getting out there and generating interest. You know, maybe if Commissioner Garrison had reached out to Chair Hulbert And they worked in concert to devise a strategy on how to get more interest for the Historic Buildings Committee. Maybe if they did a few more graphics or put in some pictures of some historic buildings in Clintonville and just started maybe doing reruns of this Facebook ad or whatever, or popping it in on Twitter. Maybe if Commissioner Garrison and Chair Hulbert had made a little bit more of a concerted effort, maybe Commissioner Garrison would have a little bit more, 3 or 4 more people showing interest in the Historic Buildings Committee. Could we be doing more? Yeah. Is there room for improvement? Yeah. I just don't think that we need to, I just don't think that we need to reinvent the wheel. I think that we could probably change the tire, but I just don't think that we need to reinvent the wheel. I think we do need, for new commissioners, and I'm going to share something with you that I shared with Commissioner Wyman in confidence. And I said, before I became part of the commission, before I began showing up to meetings, and when somebody approached me and said, I think you should serve as District 9 area commissioner. A member from my neighborhood did that. And I gotta tell you, I didn't know. I had no idea. I thought it was a covert operation. I thought that there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes that I didn't know about. And then I started researching it. And then I started seeing these old articles from the booster where people were having these knockdown, drag out fights and accusations being thrown in CAC meetings. And it was a very ugly place to be. And then I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to run or not, but I get that. And there's a reason that we have, a big polygon of the Clintonville area, and it's segmented into 9 districts. And Chair Hardwick said, when I had an opening, when Paul Bingle retired and I had an opening in the Zoning and Variance Committee, Stephen, you misspoke. You said BJ appointed a person on the committee. I did not. 3 years ago, Drew, what's his last name, Stephen? Miller, yes, sorry. Drew Miller, who lives in my neighborhood, came up to me and said, I would be interested in serving on the Zoning and Variance Committee. And at that time, we were generating interest for those committees. And I went to Stephen, and Stephen said, we are full. We have a full slate. We have no openings. So I went back to Drew and I said, why don't you join the Planning and Development Committee? And he did. And he invested 2 years in the Planning and Development Committee and kind of got to know the CAC ways and how it kind of worked and how all these little moving parts were cogs in the wheel and kind of worked together, and he got it. So then when Paul Bingle retired and there was an opening on the Zoning and Variance Committee, I sent out an email to Drew Miller in my district, and I suggested that he write a letter of interest to Stephen Hardwick and remind him that he wanted to serve 3 years ago, but was turned away because there were no openings. And that is how Stephen came to select Drew Miller. Now, of that polygon of the Clintonville area that's segmented into 9 districts, 1/9 of that communication, that onus is on me. I communicated. I've held monthly meetings in my district for 3.5 years until the COVID thing hit. It's my responsibility to go out there and make sure that my constituency and my 2,000 households and my district and my little pie piece of the Clintonville area is well informed, already knows. And you know what? That costs the commission $0. That costs taxpayer dollars $0. That doesn't need anything, doesn't cost anything. Does not cost a dime of this commission. And when I was doing my reelection candidate petition form, I had 50 signatures on my form in 48 hours. And that's because I communicated with my constituency. I am the conduit of information that goes 2 ways. If people in my neighborhood are not well informed, it's because they choose not to be informed. I have proven to my district, who maybe wasn't always as well informed about the Clintonville Area Commission as they probably should have prior to my involvement, but they are now. So, and my 2,000 households in my little corner of the world in the north bookend of Clintonville, my people, that responsibility is on me. That lies squarely on my shoulders to make sure that when there are openings on committees, that I go out there and I remember from 3 years ago that Drew Miller, who lives on Charleston Avenue, did mention that he wanted to be part of the Zoning and Variance Committee meeting. It's because of my engagement. It's because of my rapport with my constituency. It's because I am out there that they know when there are openings on committees. At some point, 1/9 of the commission lies and its committee members lies on your shoulders. The onus is on you. The 1/9 of the success of this commission lies on each commissioner. The CAC was empowered in 1974 by the City Columbus Charter to represent the Clintonville community in the discussion of community concerns. By city code, the purpose of the CAC is to afford additional voluntary citizen participation in the decision-making in an advisory capacity and to facilitate communications. We are conduits of information.
We're not doing that.
Why aren't you?
We're not doing that. We don't know who
Why
these
aren't
people
you
are
doing
that are being
1/9 of the
placed.
communication? Commissioner Wyman,
I don't know who these people are that are, I don't know who these people are that are going on these committees. I don't
Commissioner
know.
Bolton had a
How am I
mid-
supposed to inform how am I supposed to inform my constituency who these people are when I don't know who they are?
You were told, you were asked 60 days ago to go and ask, to call upon the commissioner chairs to ask them. And your response was, I have no interest in reaching out to the committee chairs to ask them about the committee members. That was your response.
The decision on who should be on the committees should be up to the commissioners.
And it was.
How?
We voted.
How?
We voted
We
for them.
voted
We
on
voted for the slate.
people we don't know.
I know all
You
of the
had an opportunity to poll.
development
I
committees.
suggested
You
that
know
I know them.
You
I
know
know
everybody
Green
on.
Spot. I
You know everyone
zoning
on Green.
variance,
You know everyone on Green Spot. What
Yes.
about the other committees?
Planning and development, I know every single.
And
person.
how long have you
Zoning
been
and
here?
Variance, I know
And
every.
how long have you been here?
This is my 8th year.
Yeah, 8th year. I have no
But
idea who these people are.
How many of these committee meetings have you attended, Commissioner
Oh.
Weinman?
So Commissioner Weatherholt.
Why is that relevant? Why is
Because
that
that's
relevant?
how I got to know the people. I wouldn't know
And
zoning.
how are we, I still don't understand how we're getting new people onto these committees.
So Commissioner Wyman, what would have, we can go back and retroactively revisit, but I did recommend prior to you voting on the slate, when it was tabled the first time around, I asked if you had contacted any of the committee chairs to inquire about the members of their committees. And your response was no, I have no interest in doing that. That is a concern.
Because it should not be up to the committee chairs, is my entire point.
Well, it is.
It should be up to the commission
What
of
should
who the
be,
committee
what
members
is,
are.
what should be, according to you, and what currently is, are two different concepts. What is today is that the committee chairs are empowered to select their own committee members. That's the way it is today. I asked you to reach out to the committee chairs to ask them about their slate of members. If you didn't know
And
that.
it shouldn't be that way.
Well,
It shouldn't be that way.
okay.
There's nothing democratic on what we're doing.
According
Nothing. Even Stephen Hardwick mentioned we're not a democracy. And it's
Commissioner
right, he's
Wyman,
right. We're not
I
a
get-
democracy.
Commissioner Wyman, I understand, and I'm not here to debate this. In fact, I'm the one who is giving you the empathetic ear, and I'm.
You are debating it. You are debating it. You've been debating it all night.
Okay, again, Commissioner Botero.
I know we've had a good wide-ranging discussion on Commissioner Weinman's suggestions here. I don't think there's any way, shape, or form we're prepared to move on this tonight. I'd suggest that we table this and we bring the matter back to see whether or not we can sustain a second to his motion. Or if we can, or do we want to see whether there's a second for Commissioner Weinman's suggestion here?
Okay, after much discussion, we have taken into consideration the proposed verbiage of Commissioner Wyman's bylaws change. Are we ready to vote for the bylaws change?
There hasn't
Is
been.
there a second?
There has not been a second.
I think the motion fails for lack of a second.
All right,
I don't know if it's, can you hear me?
so
Yes.
Is it appropriate to table?
We could table it and bring it back next month if we want. And that
I
was.
mean, maybe the bylaws change was going a step too far, and maybe it should be some other procedural change. And I'd also like to confer with Catherine on the city mandated bylaws changes that we just went through this last year, and those were codified, right? And I think one of Michael's goals was to have guidelines that were codified. So I think just there's like a little bit of a good idea here, and I don't want to like throw the baby out with the bathwater.
That's
And
right.
maybe we can revisit it.
There is. I think that the notion to bring this into discussion, to talk about how we can improve, because we're not perfect. There's always room for improvement. But
Judy, are you moving to table the motion?
I am moving to table the motion.
I will second that.
can we, according to Robert's Rules of Order, if the motion fails to vote, do we then say, okay, if the motion fails, then do we ask to table the vote after the motion fails?
Commissioner Minister asked a question while the question was open, whether or not there was a second. And I think her preference is to table the motion.
Okay.
And I seconded her move to table the motion.
Okay. So
we also didn't have a second to the.
There was no second, so there's no action on the, but.
Okay, so we're okay. We're okay to table this until November.
That's what we're voting on.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So we're going to vote to table this conversation and re-enter it as a line item on the agenda for the November CAC meeting.
Yes.
Is there a second?
We've had second.
I seconded it.
All right, I just want to make sure, for the sake of preparation of the minutes and for absolute transparency, that we are clear and concise on what we're voting on. All right, so tabling it for future discussion for November. We'll begin roll. District 1.
Yes.
District 2.
Yes, and can I throw in there too, in preparation for the next meeting, can we have that spreadsheet that Libby created for Green Spot sent out in the meeting minutes, so that way we can see that and maybe see what a possible compromise and solutions could be?
Those were sent to you before we voted on the slate in July.
August, wasn't it?
August, sorry, August.
Thank you.
Look back in your emails and you'll find it.
If you don't find it, I can send it out again.
Okay, so District 1 voted yes to table the bylaws change discussion for November. Commissioner Pfeiffer?
Yep, yes.
Okay. District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 6? District 7? District 7?
Yes.
District 8?
Yes.
Yes.
And District 9 will vote yes as well. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Oh, hi. Good night. Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No.
Good evening, everybody. I will be super quick because I understand the time. Chastity Barham, Assistant City Attorney with the City Attorney's Office. While I primarily handle public nuisance abatement actions, I'm in the zone initiative where we primarily handle public nuisance abatement actions. If anyone by chance has a legal question involving the changing of the bylaws, the most certainly reach out to Robert Tobias in our office. He is general counsel and he would be the one to discuss any legal questions regarding the changing of the bylaws. So I can provide his information in the chat. I can provide his email address, and that is all I needed to provide to you all.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, I'm sorry, I'm kind of reading up. There's a lot of stuff in the chats right now, and I'm just trying to make sure there's nothing I need to recognize before adjourning. Thank you, Chastity. I'm sorry that I didn't give you that opportunity. Okay. All right. Well past our time. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Okay, and a second? All right. Okay, I thought I heard somebody second.
I'll second.
Somebody just second. Can I just, one person just second?
Commissioner Garrison seconded.
All right, have a good night, everybody.